Nebraska and
We are,
Missouri and Illinois, but
Right.
we spun off.
We're live, we're live.
Now what our MA is, so what I say was covering the board, but
okay.
I know you have more, you have like Montana and other.
All right. Call to order here our meeting of the admin and public works committee for June 4th. Let's do our first roll call. One second.
Councilmember Brost,
Here.
Councilmember Edens. Here. Councilmember Nyman. Here. Councilmember Farmer,
Here.
Councilmember Marshall,
Present.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Here.
Councilmember Hopper, Councilmember Albers.
Here. Right. So we do have a pretty full room here. We have to do a little bit of business as this is our first meeting with our new committee here. So I never just someone, do you want to take over?
Yeah.
Bart, or
Yep.
just-
We'll take over. And so at this point, we'll call into the order of the Administration and Public Works Committee, kind of going backwards here a second. It is 5:30 PM here at City Hall in the Community Room on June 4th, 2024. We have successfully taken roll call. Now we will be looking to have, with the new transition of the council, the election of the chair and the vice chair for the Administration and Public Works Committee. Do we have any nominations for the chair of the committee?
We sure do, City Administrator Lee. I'd like to nominate my fellow council member, Joe Farmer, to the task.
Okay, we have a second. Are there any other nominations for the chair? We're gonna leave this open, then we'll close that. We'll do a vote on the current nomination on the floor. Any other nominations? Okay, we will call this closed, and now we will do a vote on the chair. It's Mr. Farmer.
Huh?
All in, we'll actually do one at a time for this. Councilmember Albers,
Yes.
Councilmember Nyan.
Yes.
Oh, actually, sorry, Kate. Can you do a roll call? Sorry, Katie, can you go back, go by the word?
By the word. That must be in there. Okay,
How does the order it's in there? That's sorry.
I had it in a different order. I'm sorry, Thomas. Councilmember Edens.
Yes, or for Joe Farmer, yes.
Councilmember Farmer,
I'll abstain.
Councilmember Marshall. Councilmember Jaxi
Yes.
and Councilmember Hopper.
Okay, in that case, we'll declare.
I'll say yes.
Yes, Mr. Gross too.
Yes. Mr. Brost.
Okay, then we'll declare the motion passed. Councilmember Farmer is now Chair Farmer, and we'll hand the meeting over to him.
All right, so to conclude our little mini election here, we will need a motion for somebody to be the vice chair.
I'd like to make a motion that Councilmember Edens become the vice chair. It's most important.
There we go, seconded by Mr. Jaxi. Katie, is it easier for you to call or you want me to call?
I can go ahead and call them if you're okay with me going in the order I
Fill it
have.
out.
them. Okay, Councilmember Brost,
Yes.
Councilmember Edens,
Abstain?
Councilmember Nyan. Yes. Chair Farmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall,
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Yes.
Councilmember Albers,
Yes.
and Councilmember Hopper.
All right, welcome to the. Very exciting.
Pleasure serving for you.
All right, last little piece of business we have from our previous session is the approval of minutes. Would anybody care to make a motion to approve our minutes from our last meeting? Sure, I'll make. All right, Mr. Jackson makes a motion, Tracy seconds it. All those in favor of, or anybody have anything they want to add to the minutes?
Just those of us that weren't here would abstain, not that we don't.
Right, yeah, that's probably the best idea. So yeah, if you weren't here, you just theoretically abstain. All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes from our April meeting, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Abstain. Larry, Lauren, Ed. Okay, how does that pass?
So we got Larry, okay, we got,
Cliff.
yeah, that's 4 versus 3. That doesn't pass.
For procedural reasons, count me as a yes. The minutes are minutes. I can verify that by watching it on live stream. So moving over for procedural purposes.
Thank you.
Katie, you good? Okay, so that passes. Up next, we have public participation. I know we've got a pretty good crowd for usual evenings. Do we have speaker cards? Okay, so we will go ahead and start with our public participation. If you haven't been to a meeting before, just please try to keep in mind, generally try to keep your comments to about 5 minutes. We know everybody's got important things to say. We're happy to listen and excited to hear what you've got going on. But try to keep it close to 5 minutes if you can. We appreciate it. There you go.
First, I have David Sebelius.
How do we do this?
You can just stand where you're at.
I'm speaking on the proposed interchange of the Pond Road and Highway 100 interchange. So I'm not in favor of it. I think that it probably detracts and causes more problems than it actually solves. There's a big enough problem with the traffic that comes off of Highway 100 being the only direction that it comes. And it seems like that road is fairly narrow and it just causes more problems.
All right.
Charlene Heidi.
Hello. Hi, my name's Charlene Heidi, and I also am not in favor of the original J-turn proposal for most of the same reasons. We have people coming off of Highway 100 doing 60 miles an hour and using Pond Road as a cut through to eliminate going on 109. The J-turn alternate that was proposed eliminates some of that, in that people that are on 100 then are forced to go a little bit further, use the J-turn and come back. So we would hope that that would deter them from using Pond as a cut through. And lastly, there had been discussion of using trying a roundabout at 100 and Pond. And I feel that that's probably the safest, so at least that's what it lists in MoDOT's website, that roundabouts are the safest, and also still allows everyone to use the road. Like myself, I use it 10 times a week to go across the highway to go to other places. So thank you for your time.
Next, I have Arnie Sprunger.
Hi, my name is Arnie Sprunger. I live on Pond Road. I actually have a few points that I would like to make. I actually have a handout for you. So it'll be a little, I guess I can just give you one and you can pass it along. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so the reason that I'm giving you a handout is because in terms of dealing with this question of safety, right, at Pond and 100, the city employed a consultant, GBA, to analyze a couple of options, the J-turn and the roundabout. They produced a 98-page report, which I actually requested a copy of, and the city sent it to me, and I thank you for that. Kinda, because I read all 98 pages of it. Anyway, and so a lot of what's in this handout is really coming from that document, and I think it's going to be interesting points for you to consider. Also, I know Director Brown provided this committee with an update in April, which included what we call the alternative J-turn. Okay, that alternative J-turn was not included in the original study that the consultant did. It just didn't, I guess, make the cut in time. At any rate, when you think about solving a problem, for me, I always want to know, well, exactly what is the problem? And the concern that I would hear is there's safety issues, okay? Well, that must mean that that intersection isn't safe. Is that, right? So in the report, GBA actually provided a little report, a summary report of all the crashes that occurred at Pond and 100. And I'm just dealing with Pond and 100 since that's what affects me more directly. And that's on page 9 and in appendix 6. But if you turn to page 3 in my handout that I gave you, I took those 37 crashes and I tried to categorize them 2 ways. One, crash severity, and the other is crash type. And so if you look at the crash severity, you see there's 1 fatal, 2 disabling injury, wants a suspected serious injury than minor and property damage. And those terms, by the way, they're not mine. They come from the report from the consultant, okay? The other then is the crash type. So what kind of crash was it? Well, if you look at the top one, it's left turn, right angle, and guess what that is? That's your classic T-bone crash. That's what that is. And head on, you know what that is. Right angle, I don't know why they differentiated right angle. That sounds a lot to me like it's still a T-bone. But at any rate, these are the different crash types. So one of the other things that I wanted to try and get my arms wrapped around, because if we're trying to really understand the problem we're trying to solve, where are these crashes originating from? What road, et cetera, et cetera? Well, the report actually helped us in that regard. On page 8 of that report, it talks about a fatal crash in 2019 that involved a driver that was westbound on 100, wanting to make a left-hand turn on the pond and got T-boned by an eastbound 100. It was a drunk driver, but that was the traffic that was happening that caused that crash. By looking at how that was all coded on the report, it was in the consultant's findings, you could identify basically which crashes were occurring because of 100 drivers or even pond drivers. And so if you go to page 5, you'll notice that the majority of the crashes are originating off of drivers coming off of 100 and not off a pond. Now, that's significant. That's significant because if you want to try and reduce your crashes, you're going to want to try to reduce or actually eliminate the left-hand turns in particular off of 100. So, we might ask, well, why is it that way? Well, it might be that Pond Road is a slow slow miles per hour road. Highway 100 is not. The other thing that could, attribute to this is just simply the volume. And if you go to page 6, this is kind of a weird diagram that, it's not real obvious on how to read this. But it's really a vehicle volume diagram that shows how many cars are turning what directions. And what it's doing is it's taking the peak hour during the morning rush hour and the evening rush hour, and it's putting it onto this chart. And so to kind of help you read this a little bit more, there's a box, a red box there, and you'll see a 100 and then in parentheses 41. What that is saying is in the peak hours of the morning, 100 vehicles were trying to make a left-hand turn on the pond. And in the evening, 41 vehicles were trying to make that turn, okay? And what you'll find very interesting, or at least I did, from the crash report, that red box, that box is what's contributed to the fatality, the disabling injuries, and the serious injuries. The worst kinds of crashes came from that red box, okay? Now, while we're on the box, I'm gonna take a little bit of a diversion here. And it's been mentioned by a previous speaker. The green box and the orange box, well, the green box represents the people coming off of Highway 100 going north on Pond, and then the orange box is the other direction. If you look at the numbers, it's fascinating. Even though this is 5 years old data, I think it's still pretty accurate. You've got a lot of people taking that left-hand turn going north on Pond as a cut through, because that is what they do. And then in the evening, you'll see almost the opposite, 51 coming down Pond Road and turning right or west on 100. So that's exactly what's going on at that intersection. So I'm just going to make a comment here that if you want to help us out a lot, don't let 100 people turn left. Just don't. If that's where we're having the problems and we're having that serious crashes, just stop. We can stop that right now today. Well, maybe not today, but we can stop that very quickly. The other thing is the people on Pond Road North would love you because that would probably, it may not stop the cut through traffic, but it might discourage it, okay? Okay, and then finally, what is really interesting, if you go to page 7 on the handout, in the report, it also provides this thing called a safety benefit evaluation. And what that is it's a model. that the consultant puts in all these different parameters, like how many crashes were they, what kind were they, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And how much it's going to cost to, implement the solution, et cetera, et cetera. And then it gives you results. And so I've given you the results, not all the inputs, because frankly, it's a lot of data. But it's absolutely fascinating that the J turn with the R-cut intersection, when I say the R-cut, that's the type of intersection we're talking about. It's not the J turn itself. Those are out in the outside wings. It's that intersection itself. So this is using the R-cut intersection. You can see what the fatal crashes reduced. This is estimated now, granted, it's estimated. What the fatal crashes reduced are, the serious crashes reduced, the lives saved, disabling, et cetera, et cetera. And then the last two lines is what's called benefit per cost. If that's really your bang for your buck, the value that you get for the money that you're going to spend. And if you compare that with the roundabout, it's stunning how different it is. The roundabout is like twice as effective in terms of safety and value. And not only that, if you go to page 8, it's like $250,000 less expensive. It's $250,000 less expensive, and it's more effective in terms of how it's going to provide safety. So you might ask the question, well, it's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you do this? Well, there may be some timing issues. We've got this grant out there. It might slow down traffic, which we as residents would love that. Slow things down a little bit. I don't know, but these are the facts from the consultant's report. The alternative J turn in terms of cost, I didn't have a number there because I don't know what it was. I did read the memo from Director Brown to y'all saying that that's a $700,000 price tag. That seems extremely high. It might be though. I'm not a construction guy. If you go to page 9, this is just this is the original, and this is the R-cut, it's the actual intersection part, the original and the alternate. And what I would say there is, I know that Director Brown has got the design in as a merge lane on the left. Fine, that would be great. It's probably more safe. But frankly, there's no crash data that would even support that you need that necessarily. And I've been driving that intersection for 35 years. And, personally, I've never had a problem. And I just watched it happen on the way here tonight. People pull into the median, up to the opening, people out and where they go. So I think there may be ways, I don't know, maybe not, but I think there might be ways to really look at that cost and see if it's really $700,000. Okay, in summary, last page, and then I'm out of here. First and foremost, please do not allow left-hand turns from Highway 100. Either direction on Pond Road. You could solve the crash problems, I think, almost immediately. In fact, I don't even know if you'd have to do a J turn. If you just stopped left-hand turns, people coming on 100, they would have to go up to Highway 109. They would have to do that. Yeah, and nobody probably thinks that's a good idea. Maybe not. But certainly making those left-hand turns at 100 has demonstrated in the crash data, not a good thing. The other thing I'm going to say is please do not create adverse travel for the citizens of Wildwood. Please don't do that. Because that adverse travel, that's a penalty. Someone's going to pay that price. And some may say, it's not that big of a deal. I did the math for my wife and myself. What that means with the existing plan is we have to drive every year to Kansas City. Every year, we'll have to drive to Kansas City to solve a problem that really isn't our problem, because the Pond Road drivers are not the crash problems. It's the 100 drivers that are the crash problems. So why should we and the other citizens that live on Pond Road, why should we be penalized for that? So my plea to you is, select either the alternative J turn and see if there's ways that we could trim costs from that. I think there probably are. Or just go to the roundabout. It's proven technology. It works. I have a daughter and family that lives in Indiana. We go there in Carmel, outside of Indianapolis. They have roundabouts everywhere, and they work. I mean, they just simply work. So, I know that's kind of a thing, but I would much rather say, let's take our time. make sure we get the right answer rather than try and rush to catch some funding thing that's trying to happen at the end of the year and maybe not get quite the right answer. So, in fact, I would rather prefer nothing at all than what the proposed J-turn is. Thank you. Yeah,
Next question.
yes, sir.
Back at your crash analysis,
Yeah, what page are we on?
3,
On 3, yes, sir.
what's happening in property damage?
Oh, so, you know, in some cases, they run off the road.
Yeah.
You know, and they hit something, they may hit a sign, they may, yeah, a deer. Yeah, in fact, that's what's happening a lot. If you look on the
Right.
crash type, you
Right.
see deer 12,
Right.
that's the biggest one.
No, but property damage is your highest.
Right, if there's no, actually in almost every crash, there's property damage. Your car is gonna get damaged. This is property damage only, so there were
Okay.
no injuries whatsoever in the crash. It was just the cars got removed.
Okay, I was thinking outside the box, other than the car, I thought maybe, but.
Oh, maybe there was some, well, if they hit a stop sign or something like that.
Yeah, I didn't know if any houses were close enough to be
No.
affected at time. I
No,
didn't think so.
No, I don't think there's any of that kind of stuff.
Okay,
Thank you. This was super informative.
yeah,
Thank you.
very nice.
Okay,
Thank
what
you.
else we got?
Jan Sprunger.
Okay, since my husband outdiddle him, I'm not gonna say everything. I was gonna tell him he could use my time if he needed it. But the same thing, I feel the same way. I actually walk and ride bikes. I have grandchildren that like to go to the park and there is no shoulder. There is no, it's a curvy country road. It's dangerous. And these cars that come off, even though we have well, these are not policemen there, it curves a lot, excuse me. So when we're walking and they see a policeman, they'll slow down quickly. And then around the curve, zoom, they're off again. But if you watch when they turn left toward Ballpark, they are coming off 65 or 60 and then going on a 30, it's only 30 miles on Pond Road. And they just zoom it down there and it's scary. It's scary. I don't know why my throat's going the way it is, but anyways, I would like everybody's saying here, look at the alternative a little better and see if that works or do the roundabout. I know you have a grant in standing, maybe you put the cart before the horse, I don't know, but please listen to the citizens. They are really concerned. We've been asking for help on Pond Road for years because of the cut through. So I appreciate you listening to us. Thank you.
Okay, next I have Debbie Weiss.
Hi, I'm Debbie Weiss. I live out your Wild Horse Creek Road. I've lived out here for 30 years. And I'm opposed to the J-turn proposals on 100, specifically the changes being made at Wild Horse Creek Road. Even driving here tonight, it's 5:20. Stop, there's one car coming and then like 2 or 3, maybe a half mile further down the road. Nothing to go across 100. I've never had an issue in the past or currently. If changes are gonna be made, I feel like, and I don't want to these people, I feel the same as far as for Wild Horse at least, no changes. To have to travel west, I'm afraid with these proposed J-turns, people are gonna drive even faster. And it's gonna be almost impossible to merge onto 100, then have to merge over to the other lane to get to the J-turn, U-turn, and then head back east, merge back again, when I'm not having an issue going across the road as is. If something has to be done, I would prefer roundabouts. If they need to be done at Pond, Wild Horse, St. Albans Road, so be it. It's possible maybe one isn't even needed at Wild Horse Creek. And then my third alternative would be stoplights. And do I want them? No. Would I prefer them over a J-turn? Yes, anything over these J-turns, please. I've been coming out this way for, I only want to say how long. Back when Clarkson and Manchester were 2 lane. And over time, progress stoplight at, Old State, and Home Depot, West Glen Farm, Taylor Road. So better than the J turns. I'd rather have the stoplight, just continue on out. And like these people, part of whatever I just said, seems like the priority of MoDOT in the city of Wildwood is moving the traffic through Highway 100 corridor has taken precedence over the disruption and inconvenience to us residents of Wildwood. I've asked several individuals for accident statistics and no one has provided the information. Every life is valuable, but what are the numbers that are spurring these vast changes to our highway? I'm greatly concerned with an increase in motorists speeding along 100, even more than the present, if these proposed J-turn changes are put into place. I would much prefer an increase in police patrol to deter speeding. It would be far more cost-effective and better use of our taxpayers' money than these J-turns. Also, by leaving at least the Wild Horse Creek intersection as is, it would not jeopardize my desire to continue living here, nor disrupt the lives of myself and the many other Wildwood residents on a daily basis. Thank you for your consideration.
Anybody else?
Except Eric McDougall.
Hi, my name's Eric. I'm a 6-month resident of Wildwood, so Chesterfield for nearly 30 years, so I'm very pleased to be here. And I applaud the effort to make a safer environment between MoDOT and Wildwood for that intersection. So I've had the experience of doing it. It is a bit scary, by the way, I think, as a newbie, when you have to navigate that. So, but my big thing is, I'll just kind of echo what was said. I've got a real life example for you tonight. So the 100 turn on the pond is, as been said, I think lots of volume and a lot of speeding. So it's a 30-mile-an-hour road. It's a country road, been there forever. And so on May 28th, I was pulling out of Homan Road, where I live, going left to go to Chesterfield Valley for a meeting. And I always take my time because it's a little bit blind there. And then a tractor trailer came, and I would say 50 to 60 down Pond Road. And you went, whoa, like that. I mean, it was fast. So I pulled out behind it and it's a moving van. And I know it's posted, no tractor trailers, except for local delivery. There's a little caveat down there. Well, I got to follow. It's a moving van from Minnesota, by the way. He proceeded up to Smith School Road, stopped in the middle of Pond, and just sat there trying to figure out if he could navigate Smith School Road. So if you know Smith School, he declined. So I'm guessing he's trying to get to 109. So then he proceeds on Pond all the way to VA, whacking branches as he goes. And then he went on 109 all the way to Wild Horse, made the turn on Wild Horse, navigated the construction. So he's absolutely following GPS. GPS recommended that route for him. And if you had the 100, well, they couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. He would not take that route. So obviously, and I just worry about the ball field, frankly. There's kids, they speed by that ball field. So I just think if you're gonna look at this holistically, that's a big thing. Provide safety for the residents. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Josh Sprung.
Josh Sprunger, 1548 Pondview Drive. I oppose, I'll repeat, I oppose the J-turns. I really don't quite understand why anyone out of their right frame of mind would want to go out of their way to get to where they want to go. I just want to go to the town center instead of having to go out of my way and go back. It makes zero sense. I agree with some of these guys. Yeah, safety is a concern, and I agree with that 100%. There's nothing against safety, but there are better ways to do this, and instead of inflicting a massive penalty on the current residents who live there. The roundabout, I love them. What we did, you know, coming down 109, beautiful. They work perfect. It works great. Okay, so maybe we don't have the funding. I'm late, so I'm assuming we don't have the funding for the roundabout. You know what? It's fine, because here's the deal. Some of the better answers, they cost more money. And 20 years from now, 30 years from now, I think if we put a roundabout there, we'll probably say, man, that was a very good decision on our part. I'm glad we didn't make just force it through and just do a right hand only J turn. It makes zero sense to me. If we have to do a J turn, the alternative by far is the better answer. You get kind of the best of both worlds. If you don't feel comfortable being able to turn left, you can always go right. But don't force the current residents to have to go out of their way when they've lived here for so long.
Yeah.
That is just, in my opinion, that is just wrong. And it is just, it's awful. I'm stunned that someone would even try to force something like this on current residents. Thank you.
Right. Okay.
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry, I guess the comments are done. Now, is there, since we all came for the J turn, is there any way that we could?
Hang on one second.
We do,
I love you.
we do have some online stuff here.
We have some online people.
Could you remind them? There's one that's hands up, but can you ask the other one?
Yeah, if you are wanting to do public participation and you're online, if you could just put your hand up so we can see if you're just watching the meeting, that's fine too. And I'm not sure if you heard, if you're gonna bring somebody in, but try to keep it to about 5 minutes. Erica?
Hi, can I be heard? Am I heard?
All right, yep, you're good. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. As you might be able to read in the report suggested by Mr. Brown, most feedback from area residents that are affected strongly oppose the J-turn, as do I, the original J-turn. And just like everyone else that's spoken up tonight, please listen to the residents who travel on and other side roads towards Wildwood several times a day. I do not feel like I should have to go out of my way 8/10 of a mile several times a day to get to the town center and other areas where we access regularly. The most frustrating aspect of the original J-turn design is that it benefits those traveling eastbound and using Pond as a cut through, as a lot of other people have already said. They want to avoid all the schools, all the roundabouts on 109, and they use it as a cut through. I travel about 6:15 in the morning, and cars are just piling from the west, going westbound, just crossing left onto Pond Road. So many people, they use it as speeding. I too walk on that road, and I've had to get over multiple times. One time, this was before the no-through semis, a semi at 6:15 in the morning, flying around the curve. I slammed on my brakes. My bag, all the contents flew forward. I had green beans from my garden to share with my coworkers. They all went everywhere. It was very scary. I would have had a head-on collision had I not swerved way out of the way for that semi. And just because the sign's posted does not mean that the semis follow that. But it is not right for us local residents to not be able to travel eastbound 100 without the 8/10 of a mile penalty. And that's just not 8/10 of a mile one time a day. I'm making that trip multiple times a day, traveling to work or taking my children where they need to be or shopping in Wildwood. If we had to do anything, I would agree with that alternative J-turn proposal. In fact, I like that as because it just cuts off the left-hand traffic to use that as a cut through. Just because it's dangerous. Really, without a shoulder, my kids can't ride bike where we live. We can't even get to the trail safely. We can't even get to the park safely. We have to drive everywhere to even get to a trail. And we purchased our property there over 16 years ago and invested in that with the understanding that we had access to eastbound 100. And it's very concerning that easy access and quick access, that it's potential to take that away. Another point I had was that on Manchester Road, there's a solid 4 lanes of traffic consistently. And if you look at those side roads of Ellisville, Baldwin, all the other municipalities, those residents have a right to turn left from their side roads. So why would we in the rural areas with very few times out of the day when you don't have much trouble turning left, why would that be taken away from us as well? And I think another resident off of Wild Horse Creek mentioned this too, same point. I think having to merge right onto 100 to do a J-turn, I'm telling you, the designers wanted you to speed all the way up to 60, cut over 2 lanes. I am not going to waste my gas by slamming on the gas to drive 3 to 4 tenths of a mile, to slam on the brakes, to cut over, slam on the brakes again, only to slam on the gas again to merge into traffic. That poses a greater risk for me that I will just be putzing along to cut over 2 lanes, and then being in the fast lane going 30, 35 miles an hour to me poses a greater risk. Again, we're asking, please listen to the area residents. Do not impose this original J-turn on us. That would be deeply devastating and maddening, quite frankly. Thank you so much.
Anybody else? Good, okay. With that, we'll close public participation, and then without objection, if somebody wants to make a motion, I think we probably should rearrange our agenda here a little bit. And I'm thinking if we move the J-turn update up and the building repair down below our executive session, that ought to put some sort of little under here. Can I make that?
Say it again.
So we're basically gonna move the J-turn conversation to now.
Yep.
And our building update till after our executive session. Continue with the rest of it. Yeah. It does. Anybody care to make the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Mr. Jaxie. Ms. Nine seconds it. All right, all those in favor of rearranging our agenda, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, Mr. Brown, I assume. Let's hear about these J-turns.
Thank you, Chairman and committee members. As I promised, we would have an update on this project for you at this meeting. We did hold 2 public meetings that were very well attended, as has been referenced tonight by some of the residents that were at the meeting. Just so you're aware, the meetings were on May 2nd and May 13th. We did send out close to 1,400 postcards to invite residents directly to attend the meetings. And they were very well attended overall. There was a great deal of interest based on the folks that showed up. We had about 86 sign in on the sign-in sheet. So I don't suspect everyone signed in, so maybe we had around 100 possibly that attended. And of those that attended, we received about 52 written comments relative to the proposals that were presented to the public at the meeting, just to give you an idea. And quite frankly, and it was stated here tonight, the feedback that we obtained by and large was not supportive of the J-turn project as we presented it. Of the 52 written comments that were received, only 5 of them supported or demonstrated support for the J-turns as we had presented it to the public at the meeting. And that's rather unusual. Usually we would get a little more support than that was seen at the public meeting. So as was referenced, we did, and I think I mentioned this and provided to you at the last meeting, we did have a J-turn alternative that was presented as well. And that was referenced here tonight. And there was, of those written comments, about 14 of them did support the alternative. And the change with the alternative is, again, it allowed left turns at Pond Road from the side road. It did not allow left turns from the main line. The current design that was presented, as was referenced tonight, allows traffic from 100 to turn left onto Pond Road, north or south. the alternative flipped it. So you could not turn onto Pond from 100, but you could make that left from Pond Road onto Route 100. That is clear. So that had about 14 responses out of 52 in favor for the alternative. The concern with the alternative the department has is, quite frankly, primarily twofold. A cost, based on the consultant, their estimate was about $700,000 to $750,000 in additional cost would be necessary to construct the alternative, and that's because the way they showed it, we had to provide additional widening on the inside in the median to allow folks to accelerate into the fast lane. And that's really where my second concern is with that alternative. You're merging traffic into the fast lane, and that's usually a bad idea relative to safety. So we're trying to improve safety. We're not looking to add crashes. So I think those are the two main concerns I have with the alternative that was presented. And I think based on that and based on the cost, I think it would be difficult for us to really support the alternative at this point in time, frankly. Now, there was a lot of discussion with the comments about roundabouts, and the roundabouts is not an option that MoDOT considered in their original report for this project. MoDOT went straight to the J-turn solution. They have used J-turns at dozens of locations, most of them outstate. There's a few in the urban area in St. Louis. And by and large, I think they have been successful, and their studies have shown that they reduce crashes. I think if you ask folks, most cases, residents do not support them. They do not like the adverse travel that is the result of the J-turn. We clearly saw that at our meetings. You heard it tonight. But nonetheless, that was the solution that MoDOT originally proposed and recommended, and that is what we put in our application for funding. Now, our consultant GBA did evaluate roundabout options with the J-turn option. And quite frankly, GBA said to us, you really probably ought to look at it because you'd be surprised how it would compare. So we did, and we included that in the report as was referenced. So the roundabout has some favorable attributes as a potential solution, and quite honestly, it evaluated very closely to the J-turns. Cost-wise, it's comparable. At Pond, it's actually cheaper. Route T, it was more expensive. Overall, it's about the same. Roundabouts generally are, as was referenced, are great for crash reduction. Now, that's more so the case with single lane roundabouts, less so with dual lane roundabouts. MoDOT has not implemented roundabouts on high-speed expressways similar to this, to my knowledge, but they have been implemented elsewhere in the country successfully, from my understanding. And I did reach out to Federal Highway Administration, talked to an engineer directly about that. And so I believe they are a feasible option and could be considered further, frankly. The other advantage with the roundabout that we wouldn't see with the J-turn, quite frankly, is the potential to slow traffic on Route 100. And that is one of the complaints we do get, is that traffic speeds on 100 are fast. So that is the additional benefit, and it provides the full access to the side road, to the local residents on Pond Road or Route T. There's no adverse travel that's required, obviously, with the roundabout. So I want to make one couple final points before I wrap up. I think there was a lot of concerns as to why are we doing this project. And the one thing that I point to, and I said this at the meetings, if you look at our annual crash report that the Wildwood Precinct prepares, you look at the highest injury crash locations. The highest one in Wildwood is Route T. Number 3 is Pond Road. So that's why we're here, is trying to improve safety, frankly. I think the question that was raised is, would roundabouts help address the safety? And I believe they should. I don't know that they will to the degree of implementing it on a 2-lane road, because it's going to be, if we were to go forward and convince MoDOT of it, it's on a high-speed expressway. But roundabouts are certainly a favorable solution that will reduce crashes. Incidentally, as far as trucks on Pond Road, speeding traffic on Pond Road, I will tell you that it has been raised, and former council member, Mr. Greg Nani, raised this issue frequently, spoke very highly. And we did bring it to Board of Public Safety more than once. And that's why we do have a current restriction in place on Pond Road against through trucks. So it has been in front of Board of Public Safety more than once previously. These are difficult things to address. The through traffic issues, we have not studied that. It could be studied in more detail. We don't know, those trips where they're going. I'm sure some of them might be going to Wildwood Middle School. Some of them may be going elsewhere. Obviously, my tractor that's going down Pond Road, BA is clearly probably shouldn't be on that road. So I think with that, the recommendation, if you read my memo, if you had a chance to read it, what I was recommending to the committee that we consider doing is to allow GBA to continue moving forward with the proposed improvement project. However, the main reason I say that is because they have a very tight deadline. And they have to keep moving forward with their efforts, or at least be allowed to do that if we want them to design this project by October, which is the deadline that MoDOT has dictated. However, with that, I would recommend that we eliminate the J-turn restriction at Log Bush Creek Road. Because quite frankly, we don't see the crash history there to support it. So even if we were to move forward with the proposed recommendation, I would recommend eliminating the J-turn restriction for Log Bush Creek Road. But I think it would be wise to take a step back and kind of pause and maybe reevaluate the roundabout concept with MoDOT over the next 30 days. And then what my recommendation was to report back to you all at your next meeting in July. At that point, we may need to make a firmer decision whether we want to move forward with the recommended improvement or backtrack. I do believe quite strongly that, and it's not a reason to make a bad decision, frankly, but I do believe if we were to change and implement or decide to implement another improvement other than the J-turn option, I suspect we're going to lose the federal funding. The federal funding is attached to the J-turn concept. That's what was recommended. So given the tight time frame, it's very possible we would lose that funding. We can explore that in more detail again with this and report back to you at your next meeting in that regard as well. With that, I think I'll wrap up and turn it over if you have any specific questions at this point in time.
Anybody have any questions? See.
Yeah, I just have a few comments. So I just want to explain to everybody that it's really upset. So we became concerned about this as council members when residents came to us and complained about safety and said, we need something done. And we began exploring our options with MoDOT. That's how we kind of got to this place. In a perfect world, we wouldn't be having a discussion about cost because it's MoDOT's highway and theoretically should be 100% of MoDOT's to maintain and improve in terms of cost. But it's not a massive priority for MoDOT, which means as a city, if we want to become a priority, we have to enter into cost share agreements. So that's why you're reading memos about cost shares and grants, because we are partnering with MoDOT and eating some of the costs to move you guys up on a priority list. So that's why all of this is in the air. As MoDOT has received less money sometimes from the legislature than what they need, what we're seeing is that the cost share that we're expected to meet has increased on a yearly basis too. So that's why municipal costs have gone up for our projects. And so I think as a committee, those of us that have stayed on council for a while, we've had some turnover. We're not married to a specific improvement plan, but we were married to the concept of improvement. And as Director Brown stated, this was MoDOT's recommendation and they explored it. So we got these recommendations from their traffic engineers. And I want you to understand too, that we're not the big bad city trying to impose this on you because we wouldn't have had a public forum to get your feedback, right? Your feedback's valuable. That's why you were invited to come tell us about it. And so I I prefer roundabouts. I will tell you what it's like in my ward. I have had so many residents say, I swear to God, if I see another roundabout, I'm gonna move out of this city, and I hate them and I hate them and I hate them. And I would venture to say that maybe even people in this room 10 years ago thought the same thing. We're at a different place than we were now because we're used to them as a community. Drivers are used to them as a community. Some of that could be true about J-turns as well. Maybe there's people in rural areas in another part of the state and you just have to drive another mile to get wherever you're going, and the Walmart's 45 minutes away. Different population, different priorities, they're used to different things. So, again, not our road, so if MoDOT doesn't want to do a roundabout, I can't make them do that. And so where I'm at today is if you guys, absolutely don't want a J-turn, I'm fine with also doing nothing if we can't get a roundabout. So I would like to continue the conversations. If we have to keep one foot in the door and find out if our cost share federal money could be transferred, even though it's already technically attached to the J-turn and I need to do a procedural motion. And that's what you're thinking, Director Brown, there has to be sort of a procedural motion to continue with planning for the J-turn in order to see if federal funding transfers.
Well, I think what we would do is follow up with MoDOT and try to get more clarity regarding possibility of implementing a roundabout in lieu of the J-turn. And part of that would be the funding. We actually have a cost share with MoDOT, and we actually have a separate federal funds that we've obtained through East West Gateway. So there's two pieces to the funding equation. But both of those applications were based on us constructing a J-turn, not a roundabout. So that's the concern.
Okay, so I'll put a motion on the floor to proceed with discussion and planning of a roundabout as recommended by the department.
Anybody care to second that? Take your pick, Katie. Who would you like to have second? All right. All right, we've got a motion and a second. Mr. Brooks.
I guess the question, would we also include in that motion the elimination of the J-turn for Wild Horse Creek? Was that part of your recommendation?
Well, that was part of my recommendation. Thank you for stating that, yes.
And I guess, I drive Wild Horse Creek, so why do you feel Wild Horse Creek and Pond are different? And I think I know the answer, but it's a question.
The volume on Wild Horse was less, and it's just, we didn't see the crash history. As I've said, the number one injury crash location is Route T. Number 3 on Road. Number 2 is Taylor Road right out here at 100. But Wild Horse, I don't know if it's even on the list, but it just doesn't rank up very high.
I mean, I guess you just speculate, but do you think it's the cut through traffic? Is there just more density on Pond?
I think it's the school. I think it's the school. I don't know if you guys will know this. If you're on the north side of 100, your kids go to Pond Elementary and Wild Horse or Wildwood Middle, right? No, they go the other way.
They go to Pond.
They go to Pond and then Rockwood Valley.
That's Fabler Elementary. Okay.
Yeah, okay. I mean, the biggest thing I know, because my kids go to Wildwood Middle, that turn in the morning is a suicide mission every day. It is. I would just love it if they put a wall right across that thing so nobody could go either direction, because people are coming like 1,000 miles an hour from Washington or wherever it is they're coming from. And buses come zipping by. It is crazy. But anyways, continue. I think most people I think the GPS is feeding people down Pond, and they don't take them down Wild Horse because it's too wide.
So I would just say, could we amend the motion to?
Yeah,
also?
I mean, I'll accept it without an amendment. Yeah, that was the intent of the motion. Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Yes, sir.
Just a couple questions, Rick. What's MoDOT's position on reducing the traffic speed, at least past Pond, and not to the other? I mean, if that's creating a lot of it, it slows it down some. I know they want to get the traffic up as quickly as they can, but I just wonder how much of it is traffic related. And then if you were reducing the traffic, that might be a little bit more palatable for them with the roundabout, because I think 55 would be tough going into a roundabout. And the next question would be, have we done any traffic counts after school is out. But as far as where these cars are really going, are they coming down and cutting down?
Well, we've done traffic counts. We just haven't done any analysis as to where they're specifically going. So we know the number, the volume turning on and off of 100 and on, but we just don't know their destinations. Beyond that, that could be a separate study, I suppose, at some point. As far as the traffic speed on 100, the goal is just to get them down to the speed limit. It's been a while since we looked at those numbers, but kind of kept them down. Wildwood Precinct have consistently tried to do enforcement on 100. We've done speed surveys. It's been a while since I've looked at the actual numbers, but I can tell you that a certain percentage of those folks are driving beyond 55, and then if you just get more folks to drive 55, that would really help. And that's kind of what the roundabout would do. It's going to pull that average speed down. MoDOT would not be opposed to that. In theory, yes, you are, by implementing a roundabout, you're incurring delay to the Route 100 motorists. They're flying right through there right now unimpeded. There's no stop whatsoever. So with the roundabout in, everyone at 100 has to do some stop, some delay as they go through the intersection. So from the perspective of MoDOT, that would be the negative that you'd attribute to the roundabout primarily, is there's going to be some delay. However, seems to me a reasonable compromise. It's a safety enhancement. It's going to reduce traffic speeds in an urban area. Seems to me as it would be a more preferred approach that the J-turn might out in the more rural areas of the state. Right?
I would just imagine the traffic count at Pond is much higher than as well as Highway T and Wild Horse. The overall traffic, so it would make the roundabout, I think, logically would make a lot more sense there. To be able to move that, especially when they're moving left and right on Pond, whether they're going to the middle school or they're going to the north. So, thank you.
Right, anybody else? Okay, Katie got the motion, you're good? Everybody understand the motion? All right, all those in favor of ostensibly moving forward with the department's suggestion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstain? All right, Rick, you good? Okay.
Right, we'll report back in the next meeting.
Cool. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. It's an important process that you're playing, and as Ms. Eden said, you know, try to keep in mind, we're trying to keep things safe and also chasing a pot of money that never seems to want to come our direction. And so when we get it, it's not like we're trying to throw, you know, bad plan in there just because we have some funds. We've walked away from some things, but it does take a lot of effort, and there is a real concern when you turn money down that money doesn't come back and less money starts coming back, because our partners in MoDOT and in the state, as we found in other places, are really super excited to let us pay for all of their problems. They would love it. And take a look at our budget. We don't have an endless amount of money to fix a whole bunch of stuff. So we've got enough that we got to deal with on our own stuff. We can't fix everybody else's. Yes, ma'am.
One thought would be, just because, you know, MoDOT hasn't done this on a highway doesn't mean they can't. As the director said, this has been done in other places. So one thought would be, as concerned citizens, that you tell MoDOT that you're very interested in having this in your community, because they are the decision maker, not us on that.
And
It's interesting because I have talked to Mr. Piercy at MoDOT about this, and I get the exact opposite from him. That it's not their decision, it's Wildwood's decision. So kind of interesting that we have two people telling us.
Well, I can tell you with an empirical example. I am in Ward 4, so I live right off of West Glen Farms Drive. If anybody has ever made a turn on Truman to go to Home Depot, you see people coming left across 3 lanes of traffic with more cars coming in. It gets wild. Bikes, dogs, it's crazy. We asked for and passed a no left turn sign. That's all we wanted to put there. And we had the mayor of Ellisville and Ryan Piercy from MoDOT come and say, we can't do it because it is their road. So we don't have a left-hand turn sign there on our road, which I saw we painted some of, but not the MoDOT section, because they can come and paint their own road, I guess. But this is kind of how this works. When we deal with MoDOT, when we deal with any federal entity, the way I would say this is, I genuinely believe everybody's really trying to do the very best that they can with not enough money and a whole lot of people eager to get something done. So I would suggest, I'm hopeful we can get this plan figured out in a way everybody likes, but I would really suggest this evening when you guys are going to dinner or whatever it is, genuinely ask yourself, if the option was you can have a plan that you kind of don't like or no plan at all, which one would you select? Because that's the position.
It's easy. We'll answer you now.
So the other thing that I would say is, while I do genuinely appreciate all this and our public feedback that we got that has been overwhelmingly not in favor of this plan, we didn't come up with this plan. We had people come here to say, this is crazy dangerous, please do something. So, that's how we got here. We'll get something figured out and we'll either do something or we won't.
And we're not holding you necessarily accountable for coming up with this plan, trust me. But I would like to ask you a question. If MoDOT says, you guys want to put in a J-turn? I mean, not a J-turn, but a roundabout, we'd be cool with that. How would you all feel about that?
Not at 100%
Yeah, I
the
mean,
cost, no, we
that's the
can't do
problem, is
that.
we gotta figure out.
They'll let us do it.
Okay, well, okay, so that's a
do it, probably.
qualifier. That's a qualifier, yeah, if it's 100% of the cost. But it's some percent of the cost. I mean, all things being equal, would you do since you don't really have quote a dog in the fight, so to speak, you'd be okay with the roundabout just as much as you'd be okay with the J-turn. You don't have a preference, one or the other.
Well, like I would drive that direction. I mean, as a member city council, I think my preference, hearing everybody, would be the roundabout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm just one person.
But you're representing us. right?
Yeah, so I mean, you're all saying that same thing. So, and I do think it'll slow it down.
I agree with you, Larry, and I drive that road every day, 3 and 4 times, 100.
Yeah.
Every day I go right through that intersection.
So,
Multiple times, and I like the idea of a roundabout for slowing the traffic down. Because I drive the speed limit and nobody else seems.
I think Mr. Marshall had a good point too. When Pond Ballpark lets out,
Yeah.
there's a lot of traffic, and if we do a J-turn, if you have a single lane, you're gonna have the same thing, it's just backed up. But if you add the roundabout, like Mr. Marshall was saying, I think it would help relieve some of that additional traffic and help it flow smoother. And Miss Eden, you're smart. I like the way you think as far as trying to see if MoDOT would be willing, to maybe tweak and adjust some of the funding. It's just money, right? So it's just, so let's see if, perhaps they say, we were gonna give it anyhow. Well, okay, if that's what we really want is the roundabout, well, maybe we just do that. I don't know. That would be really easy. I know government, it can be tough to do, but I think the mindset is, it's correct.
I
think that's the direction we're going.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think, there's only a handful of us here. I would honestly there's probably maybe 1 or 2 people on the council I can think of that just don't like roundabouts, period. So it wouldn't matter where they go. But I think for the most part, everybody's trying to figure out, how do you slow traffic down out there? How do we get our residents where they need to be? How do we, we're working on the deer problem, so that should help a little bit. It'll take some time, but we do have a ticking clock, so we gotta ask some questions, and all we can do is ask. I mean, the other side, Rick, how much money between all of our grants and things we've gotten for this theoretical project, how much money is that actually?
Oh, let's say it was about 2.6 million, is that what it was?
So, just keep in mind, I am hopeful that this isn't the case, but I am realistic that the option most likely to come back is you guys can absolutely put a roundabout in there, and it'll only cost you an extra $2.6 million. That's just sort of how this stuff works.
2.44.
Yeah.
My idea, but instead, we're gonna go back. I mean, we're gonna try.
We'll do our best, and it may be that the answer is no answer. Maybe we have a conversation with Rockwood and we move a bunch of the kids that go to Wildwood Middle to the middle school on the other side of the highway, so that cuts down traffic. Who knows? You'll figure something
So
out.
do you think it's realistic to have some good update in 30 days?
I think we will definitely have more information for you in 30 days, yeah.
Okay.
Can't tell you exactly what, but
I would also encourage you guys that are here, reach out to your state representative, reach out to your federal representative and just let them know. You know, they got a lot of big things they deal with all the time, but at the end of the day, they gotta pay to pave roads and put in roundabouts or whatever it is that we want. So
Well, you make a good point. We met with Justin Sparks the other day. And we told him about this J-turn thing going on, or this thing. He said, oh, absolutely, call my office. We'll help you as much as we can, you know, work with MoDOT. And I think Ms. Edens, you were suggesting that as well. So, and I would say to the residents, okay, we're on a treadmill, we're trying to reach out to as many people as we can.
Yep.
But I think you're right. I think you're right. So we're gonna try and do that and push from the residents' perspective and see if we can get support from this. Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
And I don't wanna give you any more heartburn, but like so there's two problems with refusing grants that you've already received, and I would rather do nothing and give it back, but one thing is that we don't want a reciprocal relation where there could be vindictive behavior in the future from the grant giving body. So what they're gonna see is you gave your word, we agreed to it, we turned some other municipality down and you didn't build it. So when you come asking for money again, you don't have your ducks in a row, you don't have your act together, right? So, because this is the first time I've ever heard anybody tell me that they didn't want a J-turn, and I've been in meetings for 3 years about this. Okay, so it's, yeah, this is all new to us because we're not in your work. But I also would tell you this, why matching money is very important. There is a $4 million cap passed by the voters, where we cannot spend more than that. That's adjusted to CPI since it was passed without a ballot initiative. So if you have a huge project that needs funding, that means everybody in the city of Wildwood gets a vote. And I can tell you how people in my ward would vote, and they wouldn't support your project because they would say there's not enough crash data. And I would like to prevent it from happening to you guys. If I would like it to not be a citywide ballot initiative for you in a popularity contest.
Sure.
Because that's where it would head. If we don't have matching money, we can't meet that cap. Even if we had an extra $1 million squirreled away, we're gonna exceed that cap and it's gonna become a ballot initiative.
And I think, I hear you and we get that. I think what's very, very extremely frustrating for the residents is that we're having our public input now. If we would have had the meetings about what the options were 2 years ago, I think when you would have applied for the grant, you probably would have been applying for a roundabout instead of a J-turn. So, you know, that's water under the bridge. I
And
get
it could
it.
be, but
I
we
get it.
also have public there saying they wanted it. So there were other people, maybe you just didn't know about the meetings. So it wasn't public forums, but there were open meetings like this meeting here, where we had meetings like this discussing options. And we had residents come in and say, yeah, do this. This is interesting. So yeah, there's been, it's just not an open
Information.
house.
We never got.
It's just like every monthly meeting, they're all posted on, just like you're at one now. Not an open house, just a meeting.
So if MoDOT just kind of says, nope, sorry, we're not gonna give you any money for roundabout, what are you guys gonna do?
Probably
You'll keep it
nothing.
the way it is right
Yeah,
now.
nothing.
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 Okay.
Thank you. That would be.
Thank you.
Well, that's not.
I would say this, the answer is probably nothing, but
Probably.
there's only a handful of votes.
What about the no left turnout?
Yeah, if you eliminate that.
Is that gonna?
We talk, I mean, the way that you wanna think about this, just like with the speeding, you can put a sign up there,
Right.
you can put up
Take the light
whatever.
down.
Yeah, you have to enforce it still,
Yeah.
and you
Take the
know,
light out.
that's kind of the issue. Yep.
Well, you
All
know,
right, we actually gotta move on, guys.
Well, I would like to.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time.
I would say, about 30 days regardless what the.
Yeah, of course. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah. Okay, our friends from Charter.
We came to talk about J-turns.
in the right place.
Did you put a fiber line down the J-turn?
I'm an L turn. My name starts with L.
You got it.
All right.
All right,
All right, well, if I can start, that's okay. I'm Jennifer Hoskins. I'm the Director of State Government Affairs. We have Dave McManus just stepped out. He's our construction manager. Kyle Nichols, our senior director of construction. And then Karen Miller, who is the guru that helps construction and is the brainchild behind this whole operation. So
No, I'm not.
yes, you are. But she's not giving herself enough credit,
No.
but Karen will present to you what we got tonight and
Well, I'd like to start with Dave when he comes back, but to kind of give you an overview of how phase one has gone and, you know, where we are. I know Kai can talk a little bit about that. But there was, it's been a long process. Well before I started at Charter 7 years ago, I know this has been an ongoing request. So as we are finalizing all the details of phase one, we are starting to talk through phase two because we want to wrap everything up and make sure that we are getting everyone covered. But I'm gonna put you on the spot here, Dave, and let you start by just kind of talking through a little bit about phase one, any highlights that you want to cover or overall thoughts on it.
I know Thomas and I have had extensive conversation about it as well as Melanie. Joe who's not here, but overall, I think it went well. Okay. Minimal disruption for those that did happen. It was isolated incidents. We've learned some options as far as how approaching things, getting access to easements, private roads, etc. So we have a lot more forward thinking, proactive thinking. Thomas and I, Karen, we've all had the discussion with the Wildwood representative team. So moving forward on phase two, I think it will be a much smoother process, easier accessibility, better communication. Okay, we've learned some things along the way.
I'd also like to say that this is a project that the folks here in front of you at the City of Wildwood and the folks here at Charter inherited. So we're trying to execute someone else's work. So someone else came up with the plan, came up with who we were building to. So we were trying to make it fit. So it's nice to be a little bit more in control of how the construction and destiny will be for this phase two. So just so you are aware how we kind of came up with phase two. And I don't know, Melanie, if you have things that you want to share. No? Okay. So for Charter, how we came about this, we have an application that we have access to that overlays basically your Google Maps, and it overlays with our infrastructure. It says it overlays with our billing system, and it overlays details about whether or not someone is a current customer, a former customer, has access to our service but was never actually a customer, or they are not serviceable, or we just don't have any information about them. So through this application, which is new for us, this did not exist when we started phase one. It didn't exist until the beginning of this year where it's been usable. So it timing wise has worked out benefits us in many different capacities. We were able to look at the city in its entirety and find areas. So previously, when we presented to the city about 2 years ago of areas that we would suggest for phase two, we came up with about 220 residents or homes that would need service. Through this effort, we are closer to 600, about 575. Now, this is not a final list. At this point in time, we are very close to a final list. Trying to track down addresses is a little squirrely of a project because addresses change, trying to find out if this is an actual house or a barn or a vacant lot, all those details has been challenging. But on top of it, also determining whether or not they have any sort of service in any other capacity, whether it's through AT&T or some other access. Because the point here, while we would love for everyone to be Charter customers, let's just say that like it is, the goal is for everybody to have access to high-speed internet. So if they have it through AT&T or another competitor, then they really are not the priority. The priority is for those that don't have that access. So we need to cross-reference what we do have access to as far as the Charter list that we have come up with, about 575 addresses, and cross-reference that with the those that perhaps already have service. And that's going to be some work that I know Melanie has been working on very hard, very diligently on the FCC data and trying to overlay those two sources of information. to come up with that. So that should be pretty close to being finished very, very soon. To give you kind of an idea, so we're talking obviously the first round, we had a little close to 2,100 homes. This round, you know, we could end up 400, 500. It just depends what is whittled out. But right now we're sitting at about 575. The next sort of steps for us is really coming down to a walkout. So we need to get an idea of cost associated, an idea of actual eyes on the area. So understanding is, did a house get missed? Are they technically in the city limits? There are several roads where most of the residents are, and then the very tips, no, they're not, like on St. Paul Road, I'm finding out. So there's different areas where we just need to get a walkout, get some eyes on it. What we are noticing is that there's a lot of areas in the city of Wildwood that are clustered that still need the service. So the Austin Fort, Christmas Valley, that sort of area, there are definitely some clusters where there's a huge need for service. But there's also a lot of onesie twosies where there's a resident out that still would need the service. So as we're doing the walkout, what we're also going to need to look into is the cost associated with building to these clusters, but then also building to these really remote. You're talking going down a gravel road for 2 or 3 miles just to get to, you know, a destination. So what does that look like? So that you guys can be armed with that information and know what then the costs are gonna look like. As I was told before, I've always been involved with this project on the periphery. So as much as you're saying I've been very involved, I really haven't. It's just my new role has access to this application. So that's why I've been a little bit more involved with coming up with the addresses for this phase. But I know that as this process changed over the first time around, and it was during COVID and costs went up, labor costs went up, material costs went up, et cetera, et cetera. I know that Charter ate a significant amount of funds in order to finish phase 1. So I don't see those costs changing as far as labor costs, material costs. So I think this is going to be a challenge for phase 2, but that's where we just have to have a walkout. We need to see what the numbers look like. And the other question that's going to be coming your direction is fiber versus coax. So a good majority of our network at this point in time is coax. It is, we have upgraded our network, and Ty could probably speak to this a little bit better than I will. So I'll give you just the super highlights, but I'll kind of hand it over to you as senior director. But the gist is that there's a lot of juice out of the coax lemon that can still be squeezed. We have changed our infrastructure so that it's high split, which means that we can do uploads the same speed as our downloads. In a lot of cases, people do not need, even with all the bells and whistles that people have in their houses, you know, fridges that talk to your phones and, you know, sensor lights and security systems, et cetera, et cetera. Some of the speeds that people are wanting and needing they're not the same. What someone needs and what someone wants are not necessarily the same. Either way, our coax speeds and our fiber speeds are exactly the same. You can get the exact same service as a fiber as you can a coax. And in some of these cases, some of these areas, because of the history of what we've built in the past, coax is more feasible to build to some of these developments versus fiber. I say that because there could be a cost difference associated. Now, I understand that this was a fiber project, so the idea may be for the city to say, nope, we just want fiber, that's the way it is. There could be a cost difference associated to say, listen, if it's really about fiber, that's one thing, or is it really about getting them service? Because there's a lot more accessibility that we can provide even through the coax system. Again, speeds are exactly the same. And Pat, you could probably talk through it a little bit more than that.
Yeah, we can do, you know, multi-gig, bi-directional up and down through coax and fibers, you know, with the same technology. So, you know, the equipment is continually being developed to support our HFC network. I mean, you're gonna hear terms like DOCSIS 4.1 and everything else coming out, and that's what it does. It's competing with fiber through a coax network. It's basically what that does. Allows us to compete and do everything that the fiber competitors are doing, but us doing it through a coax network.
I would like to just add some of the challenges we were engaged with along the way we wanted to put up notification signs, right? Charter Spectrum Fiber coming soon. There were many subdivisions that stated that the signs were against their HOA and they were removed immediately. So then the communication of it failed for that piece. We would get individuals reaching out to Thomas and staff. He would get with me, you know, they don't know anything. They're saying they don't know. The door tags that we would also apply, we would put on the front door. People would call, I don't use my front door. Okay, we're not supposed to do the mailbox, right? We're not supposed to utilize that. The other thing is, you know, this is a private road. You're not coming across my property. Okay, well, you happen to be home number 1 and I've got to get to 20 more. What are we gonna do? I know that that's something that Joe Vunich and I have had conversation about as well as Thomas, but just a few of, you know, the issues and challenges we faced. We typically utilize our aerial plant. However, we had an issue with Ameren. Ameren taking an extensive amount of time that would have really prolonged this project. It would still be going on currently if we did not choose an underground path. That brings up issues. Homeowners don't want us digging up their yard. Fortunately, construction, we do dig. And a lot of the locations was very heavy, if not solid rock. So we'd have to trench, boring wouldn't work. We try to restore as close to as found as we could. A lot of homeowners don't like our pedestals. A lot of homeowners requested vaults. It's not an option anymore because we're now receiving concerns, you know, I don't want to look at this anymore. Now my lawnmower skips over it. Now it's a trip hazard. Now this. These are the same individuals that requested said vaults. Okay. There were also, you know, individuals, can we paint them? You can do whatever you want with them. Just don't enclose them. We need access to them. I can't remember the subdivision. I've been out there, but they painted a couple like a minion. It was great. I loved it. So these are just a few of the challenges that we're gonna work out with the team before construction ever begins. You know, hey, here's what we're going to install in this section. Here's how we're going to install things in this section. So there's more clarity for Melanie and Thomas and team to be able to speak to. It did surprise me though, is how many times out in the field I would go up myself as a manager that individuals would say they had no idea that this was happening. I'm like, well, I thought the Wildwood municipality did a tremendous job as far as advertising and on the website, but there's individuals that say, I've never gone to that website. So that's where this.
They have internet to get to the website. We can first look.
If they have a mobile phone with data, with that.
Wow.
Yeah, there's plenty of areas I don't even get signal. Wow. So this is where the signs come into more important of a play, so individuals know, you know. During the walkout, it's gonna be extensive, it's gonna be detailed, there's gonna be a lot more conversation between Karen and myself and the staff to making sure everything is covered, front, back, up, down, however you wanna word it. We need this process to go smooth, we need it to be executed properly. Communication is key, so.
I'm in the phase 2 area, that's word 2. So I just wanna thank you guys. I feel a little bit more at ease. My expectations were here. And this is the baseline for, you know, normal city business and then you guys are up here. So this is just like a night and day difference. And the team that we were dealing with before, also including previous administration at the city. So the fact that you are doing a walkout and making sure the addresses are even accurate is just, oh, thank God. I mean, we agreed to a list of addresses that were not accurate before Charter would ever even agree to do a walkout. And then I could not get my ward added to the list. This is how Ward 2 got left out. So a project that was supposed to include everybody didn't. And I have the residents off of Orville Road, not Christmas Valley. I have the other side of the street. And I have some that are like, seem like they're in Chesterfield, but they're actually in Wildwood and they don't have high-speed internet as well. So my ward will be very excited for phase 2, but I think more importantly, they're excited for it sounds like a triage or an autopsy has been done from phase 1, which was my concern. My concern is that, you know, I wanted to make sure we learned from everything that went wrong in phase 1 so that it wouldn't happen in phase two. And there are some other council members that experienced all kinds of issues, and I will tell you just, you've already heard this feedback, but a lot of it was the third-party contractors that were doing some of the work and some of the installation. So my advice would just be to really maybe sit on anybody that's doing contractors, because that seemed to be where a lot of the quality issues were. So we have a council member that I know, the other Rob, in Ward 6, not this Rob. I know he wouldn't mind me sharing the story, but thank God he was home. He's in a rural area. He ran out and told the subcontractor, first of all, your easement's over there. That's my septic field. You're going to hit it. And so, I mean, just, you know, all kinds of stuff, but
We're aware of that situation.
yes, great.
Dr. Rainbow, I'm
Yeah,
assuming.
yeah.
I know him well.
You know him well, yes.
The other, the one additional thing I want to touch on, and obviously there's plenty of other comments. The list is the list. Whatever we iron it out to, we're not adding. So last time we continued to add, hey, here's one more, a person's gonna be building here. That's an additional cost we are absorbing. So we can't continue to do that. And not only the costs, but the supplies, the material. So when we begin construction, there is a lengthy process. Kai and myself will sit down, all the materials ordered, and it's very specific to the home passing out. So any additions, we're not going to do it.
Right, and I understand that. Where some of that came from, where it was, you know, Councilmember Clark had this experience. Her whole neighborhood was supposed to be done, entire streets were missed. And so that's an example of the houses that were added because they were supposed to be on that list to begin with. So it wasn't just, you know, always council members calling up, hey, I need a personal favor. It was, and this was the quality of work that we were told would happen, and they got added because they were missed.
And there's also, from our perspective, if they weren't on the list to begin with, they come to us and say, why weren't they on the list? And we're like, I don't know, we didn't make the
Because they didn't do,
list.
you guys
I
didn't
don't
do
know,
it. That
so.
person didn't do the walkout that they should have done.
Right. I think the other thing, just since you guys are here, and it may be helpful to continue to spread the message, anyone who currently has charter service that are Coax customers, we are not overbuilding them with fiber. Goal is to get them service so that they have access to high speeds. So I know that when the request came originally for people to make sure that your name is on the list for phase two, there are several that already are customers that have put their name on the list. So they are not, they're customers, they have access to these high speeds, they can get 1 gig. There's, we are not overbuilding them, so.
When we encountered that in phase one, we were unaware. Again, we inherited the project. We apologize. But as we encountered current homes and or streets that had our coax service, we did not build. Because they're already serviceable. Now, again, as Karen alluded to, it's a want versus a need. Well, everyone else has it. I want it. I fielded several phone calls of that nature, and I get it.
Yeah, and the grant money, to be fair to everybody, only applied to houses that were underserved,
or
which is a legal
underserved, yes.
definition, so we wouldn't have paid for them.
Now, we try to not engage in conversation about the financial aspect of it. That's not our role, so we defer that to another group. So it becomes a delicate balance that we have to feel.
So,
Now, I'll add on, not only did we learn lessons in phase one, we've been extensively doing the rural broadband expansion throughout the state of Missouri. We have a lot of lessons learned on rural construction over the past 3 years that we can incorporate. You know, I've been involved in those efforts since day one, so we have a lot of good teams in place with a lot more knowledge than we had when this project started 3 years ago. So it's not just this project, but everything we've learned in rural construction over the past 3 years can be implemented and make sure this phase two is very successful and very seamless.
so I think at this point, we're just the final phase of tweaking that list and confirming what, you know, is either serviceable by another provider, or is the list of what we have, the 575 or whatever, if that's the list, and then getting it to you guys to review, and then confirming that that's what we want and move forward for approving a walkout, and then we,
Yeah, I guess just a real simple one. Thomas, when we have a timeline for this to be done.
I would expect we'll be discussing here in closed session here in a minute.
What's that?
We'll be discussing some items here in closed session in a minute. But I would expect that the walkout, depending on how the meeting goes in closed session, we would immediately start shifting towards that. So I would say,
Like
how
30
long do you think
days?
for a walkout?
It's gonna depend on the list, okay, and then we'll get with with our government affairs team, make sure everything is in line, and then we can begin that process.
And I think and to add on, I think a walkout also could be a little bit additional time if you guys are wanting to have two comparisons, one of all fiber and then one with fiber and coax in the off chance that it might be less expensive. So adding that extra layer on there is going to add some more time.
If we split it up, I'm not saying that's the case because we do not have the final list, so I don't want to misspeak, but I just want to throw this out there. If we have the final list and we come to you, we say, listen, we can get on this right now because coax is right here. We can get on this right now because we're gonna tie into fiber over here. That will make the project be quicker.
Yeah, well, I'm not a technical type, but if speed is speed, speed,
Yes, sir.
I don't care how I get it.
I know that there's individuals that have asked me, you know, hey, I need fiber. I've got to have fiber. I got 11 devices. My home is fed with coax, 3,600 square feet, 27 devices. I have no problem.
Speed is.
And I do not even have the top package.
And then we need to have a communication gazette or whatever, just, you know, there's like, you're on or you're wrong.
Yep.
That's it. So, but I think a timeline would be good for the people that not frequently ask anymore, but there's still people asking. Can you get internet?
Sure.
So along those lines, so when you're doing this overlay to see who's got what, did you receive a list from the city, like, and you're looking at those? My question is, and you've gotten a million emails, everybody has on these so if somebody is left off, are we gonna know why they were left off? Because they have this, or they can get AT&T or whatever, because then you're gonna hear about it once people think, well, why wasn't I on there? I want to be able to say, we did provide your address, they checked this and this is why you're not included. Is that something?
Well, I think we need to do work.
Yeah, and we'll be discussing some of those, the kind of the logistics that we did behind that.
I can speak from I don't know, what million spreadsheets we've done? I don't know, maybe slightly less than a million. Where literally line by line, we are going address by address, has service on the list, vacant lot, out of city limits. You know what I mean? Like, it is down to all the details. Inevitably, error is human. I'm sure there's, you know, we've had so many entities within charter that has looked at this. You've got your think tanks at the city that is working on this. We're gonna send it to you for you guys to look over to say, hey, we're missing this guy. We're doing the best we can with what we got, but any address that should come up, we should have an explanation as to what is going on. You know, that's the best we can do if it's, yeah.
And one thing that really benefited us early in the process, I don't want to volunteer Karen's time, but when we attended HOA meetings, ward meetings, being able to stand up and explain the process, it put a lot of more residents at ease about how things are gonna go.
Pre-construction meetings are critical.
Absolutely.
For success. We want to get in front of the people, answer questions before we ever start.
So HOAs and ward meetings,
Yes.
I will attend.
I just have a couple quick little things, because I know we're gonna probably talk about most of this here in a second. I think it changed. What is the definition for you guys in terms of unserved versus underserved, speed wise?
Do you know that definition?
So the,
300 megabits, right?
what's that?
You guys define it as 300 megabits.
Well, 300 is our basic speed package. So if you want to go unserved, underserved, the government has defined it. Unserved is anything less than 25 meg.
Okay.
That's unserved.
Right.
Anything between 25 and 100 is underserved.
Go on. I'm sure when you get to this, I'm just thinking, my parents live over, I guess in Tracy's ward, and they've got the terrible service. That's all that's available to them,
Hardlined.
whatever. Yeah, it's
Yes.
garbage. But in terms of these numbers that we're going to see, are we talking about your guys' underserved number? So anything under 300 or whatever it is, or anything under 25?
Anything in general. So when we were looking at so we provided what charter serves.
Right.
Information to them, but the last piece that we're still overlaying are they serviced at all by anybody else?
Right.
So if they are serviced by another provider that's over, that
Yeah.
hits that threshold, yes, they're off the
So
list.
I'm just asking, what is the threshold that we're talking?
100 megabits.
300?
100.
100.
That's what's been used.
Okay, so anybody, in theory, anybody getting only 100 or below theoretically should be on this list. It isn't served by another company, right? Okay. My other question was, when you guys, if you guys were to build out a new neighborhood, are you building fiber or are you building coax?
Depends. Depends
Don't
on
you
the.
love that
I'm
answer?
sure that it does.
So
Just so you guys know, I already have an answer in my head. I'm gonna see if you go with mine.
It's the same answer they provided. It's based off what our current infrastructure is closest to the new residents.
It also depends on the size of the subdivision that's going in.
Sure.
So if we can extend HFC, we will do that
Coax.
currently today, coax.
And that's because that's what your guys' network is.
Because that's our
Primarily
closest tie
built off
point.
of.
That's the most cost effective and quickest way to do it. If that is not an option, then we go to fiber because it's made more for longer distances and, sometimes it depends rural versus metro. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into it, but we still support both.
And a higher,
There are projects everywhere.
Sure.
and a higher density pocket, a higher density subdivision at this point in time eludes us more towards the fiber side than a coax. But if you're talking one more street added onto a subdivision that already has it in coax, we're not gonna put that one street as fiber.
Sure.
It's highly unlikely. We would probably do it coax.
Makes sense. All right. And then my last one is, and I don't know if you guys know this, and if we're gonna talk about it here in a second. It's all secret, so you can't forget. Of these 575 houses that we're working with, we used to get talked to a lot about donut holes, which were these kind of missing pockets in the middle of phase one for whatever reason. I don't need an exact number. Roughly what percentage of this 575 are these donut holes versus ones that were just missed completely? That is a great question. Thank you.
Well, it would be what's Ward 2 and what's not Ward 2.
Well, it's not just Ward 2. There's some in 8, there's some, I mean, there are sections that are
Wards 1 and 6
off.
add them together.
And there's ones that are like, oh, this is done except for, this pocket.
So I think one thing that is very telling and might be a better answer for you is we have this Google mapped at this point in time. So you can look at it and see kind of like a heat map, so you can see. Now, I don't know the specifics of the donut holes, exactly where they were located and if there are
I want you to
address.
think about this. It would literally be like if on one of our maps, the million maps that we got. It would be this kind of like weird conglomeration of a shape
Uh-huh.
and literally just take like a dime and drop it in the middle anywhere.
Sure,
And that was missing.
that was missing.
So out of this 575, how many are those versus the places that we never looked at in the first place?
I would say the majority of it, and she has a heat map
Yeah.
that to look at, so I think that will tell you a lot more than my words are going to tell you. Pictures worth 1,000 words.
Sure.
But the cluster obviously is going to be that word, is going to be up, in that area. But there's a lot of scattered.
Yeah.
It doesn't appear that there's these big pockets that just got missed. It doesn't look like that. There seems to be a ward that seems to be there, and then it looks like confetti everywhere else.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be the challenge, because when Charter is building and any utility is building, density is our friend. So it's gonna be easier and more cost effective to hit subdivision than long distances for one house. And when you see the map and you see these folks that don't have service and they're out in the middle of nowhere, this is gonna be logistically and cost prohibitive to try to get the biggest bang for the buck. So there's a lot of work that's gonna be ahead for walkout and for decision-making on your part of what to do.
And the mapping that was placed out there, I know that there was a lot of confusion around that, right? We had all the maps online. The issue with that not being in sequence is because of landowners not giving us access.
Sure.
There was a lot of times we were just deceased. There was nothing we could do. We're trying to work with previous landowners. Can we cut through yours? It was a big help was the guy that owns Annie Guns.
Yeah.
We went all the way through his property. Very polite, respectful gentleman. I've actually met him in the past, but that's how we were able to gain access through a lot of things. You know, we're hoping this time, as we sit down it and we get all the plats, we review the easements, we contact these homeowners before we ever approach these landowners, if you will, and we don't encounter that anymore. So if we say this is gonna be the first section activated, that's the first section. If this is 7, it's 7. You know, that is the plan. Now, one thing in additional, I don't wanna go too far down a path. We start laying conduit if we go underground before we do anything. Okay, so we had a lot of times where there was homeowners and there were subdivisions going, well, you had a crew in here 6 months ago. Putting in pipe, why do I still not have it? That's because we're moving ahead. We're working ahead just to get the orange pipe in, if you will. And there was a lot of confusion around that. So I think between the website and the conversations, the HOA meetings, the ward meetings, a lot more detail can be shared with them so they have a clear understanding.
All right, anybody got anything else? Okay. Thanks for coming out, guys. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I know we're gonna have our little thing and
Thank you.
deal with the thing. Anything else, Tom?
Thank you, guys. We just, for information, we actually saved the building.
We moved it.
Oh,
The app was-
gotcha. Okay, good. I just didn't know.
Yep, nope.
Okay. Good stuff.
Yes. Not yet.
Thank you.
I'm gonna
Okay.
leave my card here. if you guys
Oh,
need me
thanks,
for
man.
anything.
Yes, please.
So we're gonna go into closed session now, so we can kind of keep this conversation fresh. So if somebody would like to make a motion to go to closed session. Ms. Edens, anybody care to second? Mr. Jackson, we need roll call for that, right?
Yeah, Chair. Also, once we.
Yeah, do the
Read
vote.
the specific, item being cited.
Yes, so we're gonna go into closed session under section RSMO 610.021. Parentheses 11?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
right.
11.
So it looks like 11, 12, and 14. You got that? Katie? All right, and I think we need a roll call, right?
Yes.
All right, roll call vote.
Councilmember Roast,
Yes.
Councilmember Edens,
Yes.
Councilmember Nian,
Yes.
Chair Farmer,
Yes.
Oh, we're gonna go in the other room.
Councilmember Marshall,
It helps us.
Councilmember Jaxi.
Yeah.
Councilmember Hopper, Councilmember Albers.
He stepped out.
Oh, okay. Be back here in a second.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be back. His glasses are.
Well, could you just, we need to get that on.
That's okay. If you guys wanna, we can get that. If do you need to set something up in there? Or is it all just-
Melanie and I, it just needs to be, well, can you also come with us, Katie, to take notes on the closed session?
Do you need to wait for Councilmember Albers?
We need, yeah,
If you guys wanna start getting set up in there, I'll have them come in.
yeah, sounds good, thanks.
It's
Thank you.
Oh, do we need to turn this off?
No, it's gonna.
It's gonna go with my picture.
Yep. It's
Yeah, so we're going in the council chamber.
Councilmember Albers, it's going, right?
I mean, even if you voted no, it needs to go.
Yeah, we had a.
Still going.
Cliff.
Consultant W
consultant
Financial
election.
Strategies, Joey Howard.
She's still in business. huh?
She's still in business. She conducted the study in 2000. Yeah. she's
So
very-
anybody-
She's a good person.
Is there anything, and we'll get to it. Okay, so would anybody care to make a motion to push that to next month? So, all right. Marshall and Tracy seconds it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Cool, okay. Up next, quick discussion on the consideration of recognizing Juneteenth as an official city holiday. This would be beginning next year. And then we're gonna get to the building. Does anybody want to have a conversation about it or make a motion to do it? Mr. Marshall?
Be careful how you say it, because we already take 2 days that are not federal holidays as part of our compensation.
That is
plan.
true.
So for example, if you say we're gonna go with, because it's a federal holiday, Christmas Eve is not, nor is
The day after.
Friday after Thanksgiving. So when we say we're doing it and why we're doing it, we just need to be aware that that was always a problem, because a lot of people would come to City Hall and they say, well, you know, they're closed, and that's not really a federal holiday. So it doesn't really matter to me how we do it. I just be aware that people will make comments, and it truly, those other 2 days are not federal holidays, so that we currently post.
Okay, anybody else? All right, Tom, I just have a quick question then. I'm just curious. All for it, or being careful or whatever, but why? Is this just because we thought it would be?
We've got some I've actually personally gotten some calls
Okay.
at City Hall, and they've asked if we're doing anything special, and I just didn't really know if we had I was trying to just have a general discussion.
So
We-
would
I
this
looked at the
be
other cities.
recognizing it in terms of the city, recognizing it or closing the city?
It could be either or. That was, I mean, I'm not pushing one way or the
Yeah.
other, but just more so having a stance one way or the other. So it doesn't necessarily have to be closing the City Hall, but could be anywhere between not doing anything or closing City Hall, would be the max on the other side.
Would it be appropriate maybe to have somebody, one of you lovely folks from the city, figure out what other cities do for Juneteenth between closing and, I don't know.
I think it's in here, the last,
So
Yeah, it did say.
it's here, but then going forward, there could be a lot more cities.
yeah, it could, there, and.
Yeah, I just mean like, should we do a celebration? Should it be an announcement? I'm all for the holiday. I just want to make sure we're doing.
There's already lists what other cities.
So when it comes to closures, there was,
Not the county, but
yeah, there's
Pacific.
not any front, nothing in West County, yeah, Pacific does.
No, I'm just saying, like,
Right.
Strangely enough, Pacific Clayton,
Top that top paragraph, there's like 5 cities, but nothing close to us other than Pacific.
the main thing is it seems like the wind is blowing in that direction, but right now, West County does not have any other city that recognizes.
well, hey,
closes down for
maybe we should be the leaders in West County. So,
Next year, before you do it.
do we want to have would it be more appropriate than, to put this on as a discussion for the council for next year, since it is, we can talk about it as it's almost Juneteenth. Yes, ma'am.
I would still go ahead and recognize it as a holiday on the calendar
Yeah.
tonight. And then if you want to have a conversation about closing City Hall or half day or whatever, I'd say do it this summer before the
Next year.
Next year, yeah.
Okay,
Rather-
so
Yeah,
do we want to make, I guess then we want to make a motion just to officially recognize Juneteenth? Effective for this year? Is that what we're gonna do?
I don't think we need to do that for this year.
I
it's
mean,
not on the calendar,
Well,
right?
it's not on the
next week.
city calendar, but we
Yeah.
would have to amend the current formal city calendar.
But we have council next week,
We
so
do.
that's still, I'd say go ahead and do it because you're gonna get calls about why we haven't. And then saying,
and then we figure out what we want to do for.
Yeah.
Put it on the calendar, you're not gonna shut City Hall down.
Right.
not this year.
No, we're just gonna, the city's just gonna
Just
recognize.
acknowledge the date. yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Making the motion?
Yep.
Second. Look at this, we have a new second, this is exciting.
I
All right,
second.
all those in favor of moving this to council next week to recognize Juneteenth, please say aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay,
What's gonna happen after that?
we'll talk about it next week
Okay.
at the council meeting, how we want to. If we want to close City Hall. Okay, building,
Or I thought we were gonna talk it here, talking about council level.
we'll recognize it, the motion's to recognize it for next, and then we'll
We
talk.
can do what do you want, so to clarify the motion, recognize it, that goes to council next week.
Just to
Amend it-
recognize.
amend it onto the calendar.
But
We're gonna
then
bring it
just
back
to
up.
add it to the calendar, but
Yeah.
then potential options moving forward would come back to the committee next month.
Yes, rather than, I think it'll be chaotic because right now we only have one work session a month, and I think
That's a lot.
it's too much to have it at a council level and not, and.
I think, I mean, that's,
Okay. All right,
Katie, I'll talk with you about that to clean that.
building update.
Yes, thank you, Chair, Farmer, sorry, goodness. So this will actually be going forth in front of the ad hoc building committee shortly, but wanted to give a quick update on a couple things that are going on here in the building. We've made some serious progress, and one thing I want to pull out of this is a pretty significant finding from the geotechnical study. We don't have a final report yet, but just from the rain garden exploration, this is definitely going to be in the final report. There was supposed to be some type of drainage at the base of the foundation, and there's not. They dug almost 10 feet below and.
Filled it
that-
with water.
Well, they didn't fill it with water. They took a lot of samples of the dirt and the soils that are down there. But theoretically, at the base of the foundation, you would typically see some types of drainage pipe that would lead to the sewer line that's to the left of the city hall. Yep, well, he's back there, and that wasn't there, so there is that was done back here. There's probably. And that was right where we had flooding come in on this side and then the girls' bathroom over here. So that's one thing to think about, but moreover, we were able to get back there. We don't know for sure about the other sides of this building, so that's just something to keep in mind, but so that's a very significant finding and could be the cause of everything, quite frankly, or it might be little, but.
Did we pay to have drainage put in there?
It was on the original building documents when we went out to bid, yes, it's on there. So that's.
Ed, I'm gonna blame you for this.
Please do. That was the reason I was a 4-year mayor.
There you go. That's not the case, but it's more so.
I
that-
would doubt very much that they missed one side and did miss the other.
That's
side.
what I was thinking.
And everybody was so concerned, they cut out any project manager, so there was nobody managing the project. It was the local architects who had never built a city hall who jumped in to do it, and it just. I think you're probably right, I bet it's part of it, it's 90% of the problems.
That actually, and then the thing is, well, we are gonna do some slab coring too still in here, and we were able to move it, cause I didn't wanna destroy the tile, no. But we're gonna do it in the janitor's closet back there. We're gonna be taking a pretty, there's a good chance that there's expansive soil also right underneath this area of the building. They're gonna be testing for just that. And I recommend when you go out to leave, stand next to the staircase over there and look towards the community room. You'll see a slight heave upwards. That is not supposed to be. So that's.
No, we don't have those.
I'd be surprised if there's even concrete underneath.
So but there could be multiple factors. Say you don't have proper drainage behind the building or in front of the building, but more so behind, because that's where the foundation is brought up and has more dirt, kind of water sitting there more. And then you also have expansive soils underneath, more water going underneath, pushing upwards, and then also potentially pushing inwards from this side. I mean, that would pull the wall this way for sure. That definitely gives a good argument in that regard. So this report should be very telling.
I'm just gonna, I know I'm not, we'll probably talk about this more in the ad hoc committee, but I would just suggest, I don't know if there is any that remains. It would probably be worth talking to somebody about what, if any, legal recourse remains for,
That'll be, we're
not
waiting on the
putting
data.
drainage in our
We
building.
need a formal data report of it and pictures from them and kind of put into here's our findings, but yes, that will be something
Is there such a thing? I don't even know.
That's.
Oh, yeah, and then I also say that, because of the plastic soil and all that, the whole rain garden thing, I mean, like, the first thing that, when somebody has a water issue at their house, the first thing you go is, does the water flow away from your house?
Right.
I mean, that's like, does your gas have caulk, this is
Sure,
gas
yeah,
in your
yeah.
caulk. So the whole rain garden concept, all it did was make the situation worse. And in the perimeter drain, I mean, that's a pretty basic thing.
Relatively standard thing.
Now, I don't think it goes to the sewer, but it should go to daily.
It should at least, yes, it should drive out, so it's not, it's not necessarily having drainage, I mean, cause there's pumps out there that collect some of it, but you gotta have it at the base of the foundation, cause you don't want that water settling there or going underneath the foundation, quite frankly, so that.
Yeah, and they should have put a lot of rock under the foundation when there's plastic soil.
Well, that's where we also, we'll have to see, that's what the slab coring will show us, is if that rock was in fact put where it was supposed to be
Yeah.
put. Because that's, if they're gonna be drilling right there.
Part of it is the rain garden thing could be rethought.
Yeah.
You know, some of the,
We have some bulldozers. back
Any
there.
changes we do to the,
Quick.
Yeah, clean it up real quick.
you mind if I add something there?
Please.
Thanks, Chair. Any changes we do to the rain garden though would have to be approved through MSD, and it would be kind of a process, but it would be well worth it if,
If they knew it was this way.
it would
now
need to
they
be
could find
approved
us.
from MSD.
Oh,
And
okay.
typically, they're probably gonna, we would probably almost have to tear up our parking lot back there, is my
you know,
assumption.
I just think that's gonna be part of the solution.
Unfortunately, we'll see how it breaks down, but yes, I think that you're kind of heading in the right direction there. We're gonna have some serious decisions to
But you
make.
know,
once we get that back.
I did get, you know, had some indications that there wasn't necessarily effective project management. And, so I'll just leave it at that.
All right, so do you need anything on that?
Nothing on that, just a quick update as well. We did get one proposal from two, well, it's a combo proposal from Stat and Leak Stoppers Roofing for the leaks, and we'll be bringing that to the committee, the ad hoc building committee as well, to make a move on it. The price did go up a little bit from what they had proposed before we went through the bid process, so on legalities. As it does with the summer. And then lastly, you might notice, I just want to give an update that there's a slab missing on the side of the building over here. The supporting rock was washed out during a large storm event in about about a month ago. And we wanted to jack up the stairs anyways. We're using a mud jack to push it upwards and repair the damage that was done due to erosion. So real quick to think about, we'll be mud jacking the stairs upward and then replacing the slab to make it even with the drive over here. So just a quick update there. That'll be done actually tomorrow. So some of it's done tomorrow and hopefully done before Thursday.
Anybody have anything else on the building stuff? Okay, concrete, street and sidewalk replacement budget.
Chair, and committee members, I'll try to make this brief. I wanted to put this on the agenda for you tonight, just to kind of give you an update on where we're at with our project. And fortunately, I probably wouldn't have it on here except for the fact that it's moving forward, but we've had a few stumbles with our contractor, Next Level Construction. They are a newer contractor, and they're a new contractor for us. First time they've done the project for at the city of Wildwood. So we did some checking on them, fully recommended moving forward with the agreement this year. And we seem to get primarily favorable responses from other cities and entities that had worked with them. So we didn't see any red flags, but I would say, and I would be remiss if I didn't bring it to your attention, we've had some struggles with them early on, implementing the project. By and large, we're working through it with them and we feel like they are responsive to our concerns to date. And we are optimistic that we will see some improvements. And a lot of this hinges on just frankly, them, at least from our perception, being a newer contractor, maybe not have completed this type of work with their crew and not having enough supervision on the street. So Scott Hummel's working, the reason I bring it to your attention is because what happens is it creates more work for us. At the end of the day, it increases the potential that residents are not going to get the quality that they should, right? So it's, you know, they were the low bid and we chose them and they seem to be responsive to our concerns. But it is a challenge and does take more time for us to work with them to get a quality product. So hopefully this is the last you hear of it. That means that they are responding and things are improving. If not, I'll bring it back right to you. You might hear more at a future meeting, but I do believe that the owner is responsive to us and wants to do a good project and everything go well overall. It's just been a little bit challenging. We're about a little more than halfway through the project at this point in time. So
these guys doing it in Ward 8 and over by me in 5. Yeah. Well, good. I was actually gonna call you.
They do things differently.
Yeah.
They have been doing things a little differently and some of it's good. I mean, I think actually the signage, they brought out some nice new fresh signs and that was a good thing. They've done some other things that maybe overkill and some other things that are lacking. So
So has it really, it looks like the actual concrete's only gonna be 4 inches, is that correct?
Well, if you see something, the sidewalk should be 4 inches, yes, but.
Industry,
Yeah.
I was surprised, I thought, again, I know things change all the time. The sub base, and then I thought it was 6 inches on concrete to 8 inches.
Usually around 7 inches. We do have, Cochran is our inspector in the field, and Teal Construction is actually doing the excavation work and the compaction, right? So, actually, and that could be part of the issue. Next level is really only doing the concrete work, so.
I just noticed just coming over here on Forest Leaf, that does not look more than 4 inches, that they've already done the one section. And I think you're right, the signs, they did the detour, but it really doesn't look that the concrete and then back up on, over on West Glen.
Yeah.
It really never looked like it was, I was just, maybe it's some kind of super concrete, I don't know. But you didn't have to measure, you could just kind of see that.
Well, I mean, I can certainly bring that up, but I don't anticipate that that's happening, but I can double check on that for sure. But again, the things that we're seeing are more just, we're having to hold their hand more to a greater degree than we should have to do. We would expect that a contractor has a higher degree of capability than we're seeing, frankly. And not enough supervision in the field. And it's extra work for us in the day. It increases the potential that residents are gonna see things that happen or things get damaged, that kind of thing. It's just not, it's not the level there that we'd like it to be, frankly. And, if it keeps up and next year they're the low bid, I don't think we would recommend we go with them.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing.
That's why we're gonna bring this up first and foremost, because I mean, it's kind of too late to switch contractors this year, but next year, if we know a contractor well and they might be the second to lowest bid versus someone that we know is a troublemaker. I mean, the staff time alone could make up for the difference. So that's just something that we want to bring up now, so it's something that's not shocking.
Are they the same people that are like patching it with asphalt, or is that a different company?
That's a different company.
Yeah, because I was just gonna mention, like, they have, I don't remember them taking out as large of a chunk of Thunderhead Canyon at a time as they did. I mean, it's a good swath and a not good part of the road. But they had that all screwed up, and then the other guys had it screwed up coming out of Westland Farms, and there was like, it's better now, but it was real rough. So, cool, okay. Anything else anybody have any other questions or concerns? Maybe let's get a ruler up there, because I am not an expert in roads, but I was like,
I'd just be shocked. I'm sure Victor's a good way. It looks nice. They seem to be working at it, but it just looked different.
all right, we did the J turns, great. Consideration of rail guard removal in Garden Valley Farms subdivision.
I can speak on that. So we had the Garden Valley HOA reach out to us and they wanted to remove the guardrail. Well, not remove, they wanted to paint the guardrail within Garden Valley Farms. There are currently 3 sets of, well, 2, but 3 sets of different guardrail within Garden Valley Farms. And what we had originally agreed to, what we had originally presented to the individual is that, hey, per the plan sheet that was put together for this subdivision, we think that half of this, we think that all of this should be outside of the public right of way. That being said, based off of just real life going out there and seeing it, it seemed like some of it very well could have been in the right of way. So
Before you say that, I would like to make the point that in the past, the first thing we told Garden Valley when this came up is it's been our policy that enhancements in subdivisions are maintained by the HOA.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether whether the guardrail is on the right of way or off the right of way. They did not accept that answer. And so then we started looking at, okay, is the guardrail on the right of way? Is it off the right of way? Could it be ours to maintain it? Could it be theirs? But at the end of the day, the first question is, do we want to continue with that policy or not? And if we really don't want to do it, then that's something you guys, I guess, need to weigh in on, quite frankly.
Do we want to continue with the policy that if the HOA wants to improve it, it's up to them to keep it going?
So the city pretty much financing the aesthetic improvements of.
I have so many things you guys can finance in my subdivision.
Right.
That's the.
Like ours, we paint our guardrail black and we paint our signposts black, and we So our subdivision pays to do that. Do they want us to do something else?
They want us to pay to do it.
Well,
Do
Garden
they?
Valley wants this, essentially would like the city to pay to repaint the guardrail.
It's nice for them.
And what I had said originally was, that's great, but it's been policy that that's the HOA's responsibility.
Yes.
That answer was not accepted very well from Garden Valley Farms at the time, frankly. So then we started looking at, all right, maybe some of the guardrail is on the right of way, maybe some of it's off. We don't know. It was supposed to be off the right of way anyway. Essentially, they were trying to find ways to encourage the city to take it over or to maintain it. So that's why we went to looking at actually removing the guardrail. We went to Board of Public Safety and they said, no, we're a Board of Public Safety, our opinion is it will stay in place.
You can see it behind you there. That's
Yeah,
exactly.
no, I've driven by it a few times. Okay, so what are you asking us to tell you whether to paint it or not?
I just have a comment. Yes, I would deal with this.
Tracy wants to.
Well, first of all, I was astounded that it cost almost $12,000 to paint the guardrails. And I bring that up because later in the agenda, like, we're painting guardrails at the roundabouts and we're painting them at, lights and everything, and they look real nice, but I mean, I'll go out there with my spray paint. I'm like, how could it be that expensive to paint? Obviously, it's not, it's a different thing.
It's a
but
different coat.
We were told, I think, that they didn't coat these correctly underneath or something.
They weren't.
It seems like they painted on top of galvanized.
Right, and so that's an issue just to remember going forward. I think the whole reason this came up supposedly is because they were saying they were told they had to put these guardrails when the subdivision was built. And Board of Public Safety, and I mean, I'm from the police report, one, I mean, is not, in my mind, like, I guess you drive around Wildwood and go, oh, there should be a guardrail here, there should be a guardrail there. And their whole point was, why were we made to put up these guardrails as a condition of our subdivision when we don't feel they were necessary and no one else in these areas has had to put them up and then maintain them. So I think that's where it all started. But I agree with, setting the precedents. And then I think they thought, well, if it's on city land and the city made us put them in, the city should have to maintain them. So that's where I think it started.
And that definitely is, that's a good summary of it.
And I only suggested the removal option because
Because
it's
it's
so much
cheaper.
less expensive. And just like every HOA, who's got 12 grand sitting around to paint it? And I think it lasts about 15 years. So it's going to be recurring and not just here, it's gonna come up other places now from the city too, but.
And I will say the HOA was pretty adamant. They have been very active.
I'm sure.
So, really, if we were to, tonight, we're bringing it forth. If the committee would like to look into it, we can definitely do that. We have the prices in front of us. If not, we would just need direction from the
Okay,
committee.
would anybody care to make a motion to have the city look into it or to not have the city look into it? And it's just a poorly painted black guardrail that is in a subdivision that the subdivision can take care of, like every other subdivision does that have.
I would agree with the latter and make a motion that Garden Valley has to take care of it themselves.
All right.
If I'm saying it right.
The homeowners associations.
Yeah.
responsible for it.
The HOA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody care to second that?
I'll second it.
All right, Mr. Marshall, any discussion on that?
I was just gonna say, this is, I think, what's really helpful about when it's not in your ward, you can have, I mean, we're the bad guys, you can tell Right, your well- residents we're the bad guys because you've tried, you've pleaded their case, and that, I think that's. And we've been working, I mean,
Yeah.
Thomas, and they've been great, the city has
Yep.
talked to them, worked with them, gotten estimates to do a survey to determine which is on the city's property and which is an easement. That was $3,200. So that's when I said, well, how about if we just take them out? That's less expensive than doing a survey. So why are we even?
That
That's
is
not an
actually-
option. So we
it-
tried.
But yes, and it's very true that, removing them is actually about the same price as a survey.
So what would this be? The one that doesn't, this was a Levinson production. The whole subdivision had all kinds of problems. They had to go in and clean out foundations, were at the wrong elevations, but they used to build really good houses. But in that, when they were doing that development, I think the one concern was when you go in, the one kind of went over and they had to fill that whole bottom in. And that's why they put the guardrail in there
Okay.
to keep people from running. They felt they'd run off the road in bad weather, whatever, go down into that ravine or whatever it was. But the one that's not there, that just looks
There's
like,
one that's on a straight shot, and I think it's
Middle
if
one?
I remember correctly, it's this middle one, not the far right, I think it's the middle one that's on literally a straight portion of the road.
It is.
It's more of an aesthetic
And you
feel.
go down like 3 feet or something, it's not.
That- There is one
Maybe
that
some of them.
definitely was not, like, the.
it wasn't a safety issue.
Yes.
So I guess my question would be, as a compromise, would, if it's not a safety issue, could you offer them, instead of them having to pay for it, offer them the ability to take out the one that's not a safety issue?
That could, I mean,
Just remove it, then they still have to paint the other two.
the board would be, the Board of Public Safety did rule against removal.
Even-
But that was
Can't we
actually,
outvote that?
if I
Well, no,
remember
I would-
correctly, it was the board voted to vote against removal from us, but maybe, did
Yeah,
they?
I was on the board then,
I'd have to look at the.
and that was the
notes.
discussion on public safety, was the fact that the safety related ones, absolutely not, and they should
Yes,
maintain it.
yes.
But if that truly isn't, and we couldn't really tell, but if it really isn't a safety and it's more of a declaration.
Yeah.
Would that not be a compromise to them to say, hey, look, that one is not a safety issue, it's not on city property, it's on homeowner's property? Would that not be an opportunity to say, long-term, 15 years from now, you wouldn't have to pay another $7,000 or $8,000 if you took it out? I'm just throwing it
Can't
out
we just look at why it was put in the first place?
Well, it seems that it was put in because, well, at least this is not affirmed, but it seems that there was escrow that, the individuals, like you said, they didn't finish up the job. And it was done for additional safety.
The guardrail was always on the plans. The engineer made an assessment and decided it was warranted. There is a culvert under the road, so there's an embankment.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is like, if it's one of those things,
Because of the guardrail.
if it was one of those things like we just had one in my neighborhood with a fence, so like if there was, $4,000 or whatever left in the thing and they were like, well, we could put a decorative guardrail in here, that'll be nice.
Well, it seems like what Rick was just saying was
But if it's not, if it was there for a reason, then it's there, I mean.
Well, I think based off your analysis there, it was there for a reason.
It was there because there is an embankment. So you protect vehicles from going down the embankment with the guardrail. Now, looking at it in the field, the one run is on a straight section of the road, the embankment height is not that great for a very long length. It seems reasonable that you could pull at least one of those 3 runs and remove it. And I think that's what we presented to Board of Public Safety.
And they said no.
And they basically said no, but we didn't get into the weeds very
No,
long.
and we said no because from a safety standpoint, it really wasn't the Board of Public Safety saying you should compromise and let them take it out, because it really isn't in the safety question, because it's not a safety issue. So that's kind of where the board sent it back, saying, take it back to the council, that, from a safety standpoint, we're not in favor of taking out guardrails. Any of that.
So you have physically been out and seen this, Rick? This one we're talking about, is that actually necessary? This middle one, I think?
It's one on Whisper Hollow, so it's on our sheet. You can see on the map better, but. It's the one.
I mean, like from a safety perspective.
That's the one we didn't recommend removing, I believe. No, it was on the other road.
There's one that's like literally on a straight shot.
Garden Ridge Circle, and I want to say it's the one on, I would say the.
The one on
eastern
Garden
side.
Valley Court, Whispering Hollow Court, that one was 100% necessary. And then the one on Garden Valley Court, that was, it's a straight shot. And there was the internal one was the one that.
There's 2,
Yes, but they're both on a straight shot, but one had a little bit more change in grade. But I definitely know that Captain went out there too and said that the one on Whispering Hollow, you kind of have a small bend. So during an icy condition that, really what you're trying to determine is, does this help the driver or hurt the driver? And, in those cases with an icy storm, it would, but in the straight one, you're actually probably gonna have more individuals that might have an overcorrection where now they hit that it is.
So I'm gonna throw this out there, and if somebody agrees, maybe amend it or not, however we wanna do this. I am of the opinion, I don't know that we as a legislative body want the business of having HOAs come to us about removing guardrails or anything else. If it's if the HOA clearly painted that black at some point in time, some previous HOA, that's not a city issue. So I mean, if somebody cares to make that statement that we don't want to, like, we're just not, there's nothing we can do about it. It's there for a reason, and it's there for ice and whatever. Great, and we can never have to talk about this again. Or we can try to take one out, but I think if you open that box up, you're gonna have a whole lot of people coming at you about, we're not gonna pay to have that taken out. right?
No.
The city's not.
That, well, it'd be up to you guys. I
No.
mean, that would be a whole new
No.
ball, yeah.
So,
Don't
yes,
we
ma'am.
already have a motion? We already have a motion, yeah.
I didn't know if we wanted to amend it or not, because the motion is to say no.
I know this is and this would be on them, and I know it's more expensive temporarily, but what if they came back with a proposal and said, we wanna take the guardrail out, but we're willing to put really large boulders every couple of feet?
It's worse because people hit those boulders and it causes a huge mess. We got them in my neighborhood.
It'd be just as expensive, I feel like, to bring this large by
Then moving the rocks is actually.
And then somebody I feel like could really get hurt if they really hit it over.
Okay.
All right, well, so we got a motion. The motion is to basically say, sorry, but no. Right, Katie, that's what you got? Okay. All those in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Your chance. Tracy.
Tracy will abstain. All right, motion passes. Nice job. Excellent motion.
You know, a lot of HOAs, these projects themselves, they could all get out there and do that.
Yeah.
Really reasonable.
We got out there and cleaned ours off and painted it ourselves. Okay, proposed new right-of-way management regulations. Here we go.
Do we need that? Pusher.
Well, Madam Chair, if you'd like to postpone this to the next meeting, that's fine. Frankly, I put it on here just to introduce it to you. Regardless, there was no plan to have any decision made today, so it was more, this is a section of code that we'd like to consider for implementation. It would introduce new regulations relative to the issuance of right-of-way permits that will replace special use permits that we currently issue. So it's rather lengthy. There's a lot there.
Let's move it to, this is what we've talked about. right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's
And it-
definitely maybe we do next month.
And please take a hard look at it, because what we kind of had city attorney do is make it, give us the à la carte options of how strict we can be and kind of have us mold it based off the committee's opinion of what we want to do. So there's tons of options, but if we passed it per the legislation available to you today, it's gonna be some of the strictest right-of-way management regulations in the county.
So I probably, because it's for action, we need a motion to push it to next month.
Yeah, I would, tonight we.
Anybody care to do that? All right. Tracy, Lauren, then Tracy. All right, all those in favor of moving our right-of-way management regulation review to next month, please say aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that passes. Consultant agreement for construction engineering.
Chair and committee members, this next item is pertaining to our Manchester and Taylor resurfacing and signal improvement project. We are getting very close to getting authorization from MoDOT to bid that project for construction. It is federally funded. The federal funds unfortunately pull in a lot of explicit requirements that we are required to follow. Point being that when we get into construction, there's a fair amount of administrative work that we have to do that takes time and requires a staff member to do it. So what we're proposing to do for this project is to have that work done by a consultant. Brendan will be directly involved in the construction. We would pull in a consultant to help us administer the construction, do the daily reporting, the construction inspection of the work that's done, as well as the materials inspection. So in light of that, we did request a proposal from Coastline Engineering to do that work, and they provided us a fee estimate, which I provided to you as part of the memorandum work that was attached. So basically, the recommendation to the committee members is to move forward with an agreement with Cochrane to complete the construction engineering services for the Manchester Taylor project. The total cost, including 10% for contingencies, would not exceed $157,100. So that's the recommendation to the committee that we were asking you to consider tonight. And I guess I'll stop and go for any questions that you may have.
All right, any questions? Concerns?
It is in the budget now, though, right?
Well, it's included within the capital budget for the project.
All right, well, so I just have a question. So this is for multiple projects, right?
This is only for the Manchester and Taylor improvement project. So we actually have approved, and you have approved as a council, the use of Cochrane for our concrete street replacement project already. So that's why we recommended that they do this. This is additional above and beyond, and it would be under a separate agreement with Cochrane.
And then just, I guess in case anybody's watching, aside from is how we do a lot of things. Is there an additional benefit or reason to going with an outside consultant as opposed to, I assume, adding a different engineer person to our staff? I don't know.
We would need to have, that person would, the problem is, it's kind of based off our philosophy of a contract city, but more so if we added an individual, and we would definitely find stuff for them to do during the off, like when there wasn't a project, but right now we don't have a major project that's not included in our concrete street replacement and asphalt resurfacing, but you know, when you have that downtime, maybe more so in the winter.
Yeah, what do they do?
What are they doing? I mean, they have stuff to do, trust me, but we would find someone that's perfect at getting really the reporting done, and Rick can elaborate, Brendan can elaborate on this more, but for these federally funded projects, I mean, it's every single day, you have to submit a very intensive report or you risk losing funding. And so that means you need someone 100% tied down to that project, pretty much, that's their job for the entirety of construction. Without that, then you risk losing that 80% match that the city has already secured. So that's really why it's so expensive, because they're technically putting an employee out there.
It is what it is.
Yeah, that's.
So then, Rick, you need a motion then to proceed with what you guys would like to do here?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Would anybody care to make a motion for a consultant? Mr. Bros, seconded by Ms. Edens. All those in favor of moving forward the consultant agreement for construction and engineering, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Supplemental agreement for design of Route 109 BA South Roundabout project.
Chair and committee members, this next item is relative to wrapping up the engineering on our Route 109 BA South Roundabout project. HR Green has made good progress with that. They've completed the final design plans, and we are at the point where we just need to finalize the right-of-way acquisition with Ameren. They have 2 parcels which we require easements and new right-of-way from. And we also need to begin the utility relocation work. Missouri American will be starting that work relatively soon. We have to relocate Missouri American facilities which are underneath the pavement, as well as fire facilities, and then Ameren's poles that are adjacent to the roadway. So those relocations need to start work, and this request essentially pertains to additional work to coordinate and stake the right-of-way for the utility relocation work to begin this summer. And then also obtains to additional work necessary to acquire new right-of-way from Ameren. To do that acquisition, we are required to prepare a right-of-way dedication plat from Ameren, which is in progress. So that work is part of this supplemental agreement request with HR Green that is being recommended to the committee tonight. So these 2 items have added additional work that was not part of the original scope of work, part of the agreement with HR Green. So that's why we are requesting a supplemental agreement tonight. The total value of that would not exceed the amount of $51,000. So that is the recommendation, and with that, I'll turn it over for any questions.
All right, any questions, or would anyone care to make a motion? No. All right, we've got a motion. Anybody care a second? Take your vacation. All right, here we go. All those in favor of moving forward with the department's recommendation?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, cool. What are we on here? The aesthetic enhancements?
So Chair, committee members, this next item, we brought this to you previously, those of you that were on the committee. What is moving forward with a project to resurface Route 109 and Route BA. Route 109 would be resurfaced from 100 up to Route CC or Wild Horse Creek Road, with an exception for our roundabout project. Route BA would be resurfaced in its entirety. MoDOT is agreeing to allow us the opportunity to fund the implementation of enhancements to this project. The things that we had talked about previously, again, are enhancing the guardrail finish as one item. The signals at Clayton Road and at Shepherd Road are going to be replaced with permanent steel posts and arms rather than the span wire installation that's there now. So signals are proposed potentially to be enhanced with the black powder coat finish, which is consistent with the other signals that we have in Wildwood. Then the third potential item would be the addition of the LED street name signs on those two signals, as we've done at 100 in Taylor some years ago. And that will also be done as part of our Manchester Taylor project. So essentially, we would be taking the signal installation at Clayton Road and Shepherd Road, and what we would be doing is upgrading to have those signals essentially consistent with the other signals in town center, with the exception of Manchester, 109, and New College. So that is the request tonight. The total cost of this would be about $125,000. I would say the guardrail, what I'm recommending, if you want to go with my recommendation, is that we only enhance the guardrail essentially from on 109 from BA to the south. And a lot of that, frankly, about that, and that would include about 1,800 feet of guardrail. But about 1,400 of that is existing rail that's in place that they are removing and replacing. So I know this is a little in the weeds, but from 100 to Clayton, the 4-lane section, the rail that's in place is getting removed because it does not meet current standards. So they're going to put it back as galvanized. Right now it's black finished. So we would be putting back black finished guardrail if we approve this.
If we don't approve it, it'll go back as galvanized
It'll
from
go back
Clayton to
to
roundabouts.
100.
Yeah.
There's another 400 feet thereabouts to the north of that. There's 3 runs of rail that would be galvanized unless we want to pay extra to make it black finish. Everything on BA, I'm not recommending that we do that. Anything north of BA on 109, I'm not recommending that either, frankly. And that was something that we talked about doing at the last meeting. But given the costs involved, some of this recent discussion with, frankly, with the HOA, Garden Valley, you know, maybe we scale it back and we say, all right, BA intersection to the south would be the limits of the black finish guardrail, and just hold the line there and not go any further north on 109 or include route BA in that. That cuts our costs back, and you know, just that's where we're suggesting that we could draw the line. So that's the recommendation, just to do the enhanced rail from on 109 from BA to the south. The LED street name signs on the 2 signals, and then the black finish for the 2 signals as well. That would be the recommendation, the total cost, and that includes 2 agreements, an agreement with MoDOT to implement it. Implementation cost would be about $100,000, and then I'm gonna have to have an agreement with HR Green to put all this together as a package to include it in MoDOT's bid. That cost is about $25,000. So the total recommendation is to spend $125,000 for those 2 items. With that, I will turn it over to you for questions. I know it's been a long night.
All right, any questions?
Does the black guardrail stay black? Does it hold up as black?
10, 15 years?
It's about 10 to 15 years on the lifespan, what we're seeing, I think is fair to say. The key is to do it and not try to paint it later over the galvanizing. If you bring it out of the shop as powder coated finish, it does have a much better success rate.
I'm not sure if I'm getting the aesthetics right, how much galvanized, how much black, and is it worth mixing that up? You know,
But we already currently, it's pretty much like if we're okay with not having it be black,
yeah,
then that's fine. But right now, we would be seeing galvanized be introduced, and it'll be, if we a year from now wanna introduce this, it's gonna be much more expensive. So it's pretty much, we just have to be willing to accept that yes, the galvanized steel will work just fine. it would also lead to overall maintenance costs going down because we have to maintain these, correct, for perpetuity?
Well, we'll not maintain the black
They
finish.
don't put in the galvanized.
Right, so then it leads to issues and we're gonna have to work through that, I think, going down the road. But in some cases, we have repainted it, and again, we probably do a cursory job of that with our contractor, frankly. And we'll get out there and do as little as we can to maintain it and keep it looking reasonably well, but over time, it is a concern, frankly, it really is.
And the only thing is, it is gonna look kind of funny if we do not do it, but that would be something.
The only places really that the most noticeable places that it is just galvanized now is coming up 109 from Eureka and then going down Wild Horse Creek Road.
Yeah.
And I just heard from people that lived around there that they were like, what is happening with this silver stuff? Because it doesn't look like that anywhere else.
I come up that way all the time.
Yeah, I
Couldn't
mean.
give it a second thought.
I think the big thing we learned with the 109 thing is, I mean, it is ridiculously inexpensive to do it before they bring it out to us. As compared, I think when we looked, it wasn't like
Oh, it was.
$2 million
it
or
was like
something.
$2 million.
109. So,
Like 10,000 feet or something.
yeah, it was crazy. Yes, ma'am.
If it's painted black and someone hits it or
They'll
like
put
scrapes
galvanized.
against, it'll what?
They'll, MoDOT will come out, put galvanized, and it's our responsibility to fix that.
Okay.
Well,
So
when
I
they
mean,
come out to
just-
do it, we could just say to powder coat it.
That would be part of some kind of long-term maintenance agreement.
Okay.
I think
I
my
just
goal
wondered
would
how
be to be in a position where we could work and deal with the contractor. to bring it.
Exactly.
Hey, we do it, it's in policy.
Yeah,
I know
what they think, Tracy.
discussions. You know, and I don't recall who was really pushing for the painted guardrails. I mean, I would probably say no. But I don't recall who was pushing.
Former mayor,
It was, yeah,
What's that?
And
former mayor,
it was
Former mayor, like
mostly
old-
Jim
Jim.
Oh, Jim.
and
Okay.
some of Ed's gone.
He wanted.
So what's the extra cost?
It's like,
$125,000 for the whole work that's being.
no, it's like
recommended.
$10. It's like $10 per 10 feet.
what is it? Can we separate
$1 foot.
the light posts from it?
But
What about the Clayton?
20,000 or?
The guardrail was about 18,000 of the total, right?
My only question is, you mentioned that there's a separate area.
We have to buy the guardrail.
We have to pay the
To
difference,
powder coat it, it's an extra like 20
And
grand.
what is the difference?
$18,000,
How much?
$18,000.
Okay, and then the ongoing maintenance of it.
I'm just,
We're not gonna do BA because people are more chilled.
Well, it's kind of like, it really what it breaks down to is the majority of the area we'd be covering is currently black, so it's gonna go from being a nice black to the galvanized steel color, but BA right now is already, it's either doesn't have the galvanized steel at all, or it would have already galvanized steel, not the black. This is more so
Ward
keeping.
one, we don't even get guardrails.
It's because we have to have black ones.
You have to have roads first. I thought Rick did a good explanation though of where you were gonna do it. So it's gonna be from Clayton Road north to BA.
Well, we
Would be
would, what
black.
I was proposing was BA South. Yeah, so the BA intersection on 109 to the south, we would just say that's the draw, that's the break point. And everything to the south would be black finish guardrail to 100. And that's strictly arbitrary, but trying to limit the amount that we are
It's not as
spending on.
noticeable when you at least have a cutoff point.
BA, the number from MoDOT, there was over 6,000 feet of rail going in on BA. So unfortunately, yeah, it's gonna look a lot like Wild Horse or 109 South. But it'll cost more, obviously, for us to.
The city couldn't afford to redo all that 6.
Well, I think also, I mean, get back to the public safety thing. I mean, those roads are a little bit, I mean, being able to see the guardrail is
Helpful.
not a bad thing on some of that road. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I kept cutting you off. There was a pause and every time there was a pause, I thought you were done speaking and then I would jump in, so it wasn't intentional, but I was like, oh, no, yeah, I was just, I will say, the folks on Clayton that are used to black will probably have a conniption fit if it goes from black to something else, so. I mean, if we're really looking to cost, I would just say if we could separate it out to like replace in kind with in kind and then anything new galvanized, but I like where you've made the delineation, but if as opposed to doing none of it, I would at least replace what's already exists.
All right,
I'll make a motion to go with the department's recommendation.
okay. Anybody care to second? Somebody has to, or we have to keep sitting
You
here.
have to stay.
I'll
All right, Mr. Jackson, gonna second. Excellent. Okay. All those in favor of moving forward with the department's recommendation for some black and some not black guardrails, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstention?
I'll oppose. Just
There is
to make
opposing,
things
he's still
in-
waiting for roads in Ward one.
I'm abstaining.
All right, excellent. This is exciting stuff. Okay,
Good times.
and
Katie, go.
proposal for utility locating services.
I would say, council members, if you would like to postpone this just because you'd like to get out of here and not have a discussion on this, that would be fine.
This
It's
is
not
pretty easy.
urgent. However, if you would like to act on it, that's fine as well.
Whatever you want.
It's all about saving money.
For utility locating.
Does anybody, let's just
Let's just do the,
yeah.
we'll get,
All
we'll
right,
do
let's
it.
get it over with.
So, I don't know if you're really aware, but so we have a certain amount of lights in town center that we own and maintain. And as part of that responsibility, we have to participate in the Missouri One Call system. And so when utilities put in a ticket to do excavation, we get notified. And typically Brendan or someone in the department, right? Right.
Younger Brendan, you get somebody else in the future.
Brendan Pelper.
He'll get that email and then we have to check our map and notify TSI, who's currently been working for us in this regard, to go out and mark our facilities so they don't get damaged. After talking with TSI, they have submitted a proposal to us to essentially expand on what they do for us. Instead of just going out in the field and marking the facility for us, what they would do is replace Brendan. So when the notice comes in, they would review it based on our map, determine if we have a facility in that area, and correct me if I misspeak. And then they would go out and mark the facility for us. And essentially they proposed doing this for a cost of 16 grand for the year, or about 1,333 per month. And basically determined after looking into it that we're spending about 13,600 already just on the field marking portion of it. So for a little bit more, it will relieve us of that office effort of doing this work. So we'd like to do this and move forward with it. We believe it'll save us the aggravation and, you know, hopefully some money as well. And so that's the recommendation to you, is to move forward with an agreement with TSI to handle not just the field marking, but the office portion of the responsibility for the cost of $16,000 for the year with an agreement. And with that, I'll turn it over to you for any questions relative to this request.
So TSI's been doing this for quite a few years,
Yeah, they also installed this sound system.
and maybe they know what's underneath the floor, right?
Yeah.
I get, my question would be is if they have that, are they storing this stuff in computers, so it's not do it over each time, or do they have to physically do it each time, or they can go back and say, oh, we were over there 3 months ago and this is where.
My hope would be they're doing that. It's a pretty impressive company. They do a lot. They actually installed all of Busch stadiums, like
Yeah.
advanced electronics, and did all the utilities for them as well. They've done a lot of that kind of work in St. Louis, but I'd have to check. I mean, Rick, do you know if they are?
If I may, one
Yes, Brett.
reason marking paint is specifically made not to last that long. It's not like regular spray paint. So there's a lot of relocates of all our facilities. And we purposely tell them be light on the locates because
It stays for a long time.
you don't want to see red everywhere.
great. That's my question.
Anybody else? Anybody care to make a motion to move forward? Steve make the motion. Mr. Bro seconds. All right, all those in favor with moving forward with TSI? All right, anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right. All we need is a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I can't make it anymore. So Ms. Edens makes it. Okay.
I had a resident send an email today asking when the Crestwick crosswalk would be installed.
Well, we haven't gotten quite out to bid just yet. There's lots going on, so it's still, there's still a few things to be done. I'll get to getting the bid package prepared, and then as soon as we can do that, we will bid the project, and then we'll bring results to the committee for approval.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Brooks.
Yeah, and I may be remote for the July meeting, so can we move investments to August? Is that?
Sure.
I'd have to get with the city treasurer, but I don't think that'd be a problem.
Okay, because just in case I don't have service. Not everywhere is as good as Wildwood.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So just to put on the agenda, I would love for us to have the open discussion about going back to 2 city meetings a month. And I can just tell you, I just think it's an embarrassment for the public to come in here and you see a resolution come forward. It says if you have a problem with it, the city can do it in 15 days. We won't meet for another 30 days. So the idea of doing that, thinking it's more efficient, is pretty embarrassing, I would think. Telling the residents, well, now you come back next month. And then we jam everything in and try to do 2 readings. There's nothing efficient in my, I know under COVID and all that. It just seems to me that there's so much stuff on the agendas that you're not having a good discussion. And I honestly think it's kind of an embarrassment. It's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think we can put that, sure, absolutely. Figure out which way we want to go. Because we gotta come up with a new calendar for next year soon. All right, anything else? All right. You got our motion to adjourn? Stevens? Yeah, and Mr. Bros seconded it. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? All right, we will see everybody